must try your best, and that's the best anybody can do.
Eh,
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our this week's Cheap Seats Creative Podcast. I'm a geeky writer,
I'm Crimson Maroon.
I'm a character called Sinister Boy.
And I'm Sprinks.
and this week we're covering Pinocchio. But before we get into some facts here, so Sprinks, you wanna handle over our socials?
Yes. Actually, to avoid confusion, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, because there's
Oh
Yes,
yeah, that's probably
a
true.
lot of
There's,
versions out there.
there's
That's
five
Um,
different
fair.
versions. Yeah.
yes. So everyone, if you wouldn't mind, give us a follow on our social media platforms that we have. We're at Cheap Seat Critics on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Cheap Seat Critics Podcast over on Facebook. We're also on youtube.com/at Cheap Seat Critics if you want to watch the video format to see the movie or show, whatever we're covering, slideshow, as well as our little PNG tubers. We also have a letterbox if you're interested, which I believe is down in the description of the YouTube. And, Ryder, if I'm correct, it should be with the audio formats as well. If you're interested in
Should be,
more of
yes.
the graphs of how everything measures to each other.
And technically on Twitter, we are at Cheap Seat Critic. The S did not fit.
Oh, there's no S. I am so
There's no
sorry.
S
I've
on
been
the.
saying that
No.
for over a month now. Oops.
It's okay. I just finally realized I.
Yeah. So yeah, we're covering Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, a stop motion movie. It was a movie that was canceled back in November of 2017. I didn't know that while I was brushing up on my history with this movie, and it was picked up in October 2018 when Netflix sort of announced that they brought Del Toro on board to direct the stop motion movie again. Um,
which
and
was,
One of the
had a,
good things Netflix did, I guess.
yeah, they have to do one small drop in the giant ocean of shit. I guess.
yeah,
That's true. I
and
know Crimson pretty much despises Netflix originals.
yeah, and I would count this as one of the better, you
I
know,
mean, it's not a true Netflix
No,
original.
well, most of the
But,
stuff isn't true Netflix
uh,
original.
in the documentary bit, they talk about how this has been worked on for 15 years. I don't know to what extent that means worked on for
Um,
15 years, if that's just like the
I
concept started 15 years ago, but
Yeah, I know that
15 years thing
he
worked
started in, like,
on.
2008, yeah, like, kind of making up the idea, and I'm not 100% certain you guys, Sprinks and Crimson actually were able to watch the making of special feature. I think it was about 20 or 30 minutes long. I don't know if this version, 'cause I know the version that when it got canceled had a screenplay or at least a screenwrite with Patrick McHale of Over the Garden Wall and Adventure Time uh, fame, and I don't know how much of that is present in this final version. But I know that like when it got canceled, that was kind of like a big selling point for it.
I don't
So I
think
don't
awesome.
that
know.
was brought up.
No.
No, I don't
Uh,
remember them ever talking about Over the Garden Wall or Adventure Time in the little
Yeah.
documentary.
Oh yeah.
uh,
It's not just that, but yeah. Go on.
this is also the longest stop motion animated film I think to date, right?
Is it
I believe so. It's
Uh,
listed. So,
almost two
uh,
hours?
it
So
makes sense,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it is. It is definitely very long.
That's true. The singing in the credits does still count as animation towards it, so it doesn't cut off at the credits.
This is true. Kate Blanchett told Guillermo del Toro that she wanted a part in this film while she was working on Nightmare Alley in 2021. But the only character they hadn't cast was Spazzatura, and to Del Toro's surprise, Blanchett was still enthusiastic to voice the character.
She called it her spirit animal.
Yep.
Yep. Uh, this is also the first animated film by Guillermo del Toro, which is, well, I guess is one way to make your splash onto the scene was a fucking Oscar-winning movie, right?
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
curious if to him it opened more creative liberties for using puppeteering and animation than live action, the limitations in
I,
that.
I know he's said that he found it ironic using puppets to make a movie about a puppet. That he thought it was fitting for it lended itself to that sort of
Meta.
style. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, I don't know. I think because he was really into the original Disney version from the 30s or 40s, and felt that because there'd been I know there's been some live action ones with like CG, and especially with the most recent Disney one, which is quote unquote live action. I think he felt that animation was probably the better format to tell the story than with real people.
I would probably agree with that. It's the choice of using the puppets in place of like live action or the animation. I think is very. I think it was obviously it's a very deliberate choice considering how long it took them to make this, but
Yeah,
I think it was very intentional. I think that's he was leading that direction from the beginning.
I also think, especially with the style of this, or the characters in this, it does lend itself to sort of the fairy tale, like olden times, kind of obvious. I mean, this is kind of like turn of the century, so it's 1930s Italy, but still, it kind of feels like out of a Grimm's fairy tale book or whatever, even though it's you know pre kind of predates that a little. Or doesn't predate it, but
Well,
Mhm.
so
I'm not
much
trying to take away from
thought,
Italian fairy tales.
so much thought was put into this movie. I do recommend the behind the scenes thing because
No.
they put so much detail in every single aspect because you do have to make everything in stop motion. Um,
Yeah.
they had some like green screen stuff
And some painted
pre-made into the
backgrounds, but
sets,
yeah.
Yeah. There's
um,
something you can't avoid.
but like Sprinks, they brought up the example of coal dust on the walls near the fireplace. I never
Mm.
noticed while watching, but when they
Yeah,
pointed it out, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's that's so small,
and
I don't
also
know.
but
when they
really adds to
finished
it.
Mm.
making a puppet, they had to then go back and make it look worn
Dirty,
and dirty.
yeah.
They couldn't all be pristine.
And they
Mhm.
purposely went out of their way to animate kind of mistakes, like itching and scratch. The
Oh, the whole
characters.
kicking the balloon thing.
Yeah. Hmm.
I already
Yeah,
knew
that
how
was
to get the
definitely
balloon.
Give it
that
more
was
of a
very good.
realism.
Yeah. Del Toro is the first Latino to win in the Golden Globe category, and Pinocchio is the first film for a streaming service to win it. So
Oh,
good on
kudos.
this. Uh, is this Netflix's first Oscar? I think that might be.
There's no way.
Uh,
There's no way.
No, Thunder Force, right?
I
Yeah.
feel like they might have.
Yeah.
I feel like they might have had something for, but
Uh,
oh, there was the a wedding story or a marriage story. Didn't that win something?
I don't even
yes,
know what
yes, I
that
think you're
is.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the
Uh,
uh, Scarlett Johansson, Adam Driver movie.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes. I forget the name of it.
Marriage Story.
Marriage Story, is that what okay.
I'm pretty sure it's yeah.
this is Guillermo del Toro's first and only PG rated movie so far.
That was
Man
Pan's
likes his.
Labyrinth. Was that PG-13?
I think so.
Oh.
Yeah, that definitely feels PG. When I watched
Yeah.
that, I was like, yeah, this
This is the first PG rated movie.
that
uh,
also. Oh, you know what? That also had fascists in it. Now that I'm remembering.
In Pan's Labyrinth?
Yeah, and Pan's Labyrinth. Yeah,
I looked it up. Pan's Labyrinth says rated R.
R. Oh, I don't okay.
Damn.
there's some gore in there.
Uh, yeah. I'll turn this over to you, Crimson and Spring, 'cause you guys watched the actual documentary, the making of. So you know.
Anything else we remembered to bring up? It's kind of on the spot. Didn't really write these
Yeah.
down and planned.
Oh, I'll give you time then. So I knew there was going to be multiple versions of puppets for characters in this. I did not
Yeah,
realize the scales to which they had puppets.
Oh yeah.
Uh, they had a Pinocchio that's like the size of a thumbnail, and then a Pinocchio that's the size of a bedroom, essentially. Just for scale. The big ones, obviously, for when like Jiminy Cricket, or not Jiminy, not in
Sebastian.
this, but Sebastian.
Sebastian.
When
Sebastian. Yeah.
Sebastian is interacting with Pinocchio physically, then they used the big Pinocchio puppet for that, and that's pretty cool. And they had a lot of different faces for Pinocchio.
Well, they had
They did a good job with,
two.
because the grain doesn't move. I noticed the
Mhm.
eyes did when watching, but the
Yeah.
Yeah.
actual head itself, that all pulls off and put back on.
Yeah, they
Which
had
I
two different
didn't realize.
types of puppets, which was the um I forgot what they call it. One was the mechanical one where it had all wiring and mechanical parts underneath where they could physically move the face with expressions, which I believe Geppetto was.
Mhm.
And then Pinocchio himself had the other form, which was replacing the faces for every movement, and I forget what they called that one. Where anytime the mouth moves, they had to put on a whole new face.
Yeah.
That's
Very clean.
very time consuming.
Oh god. I mean,
They
it's
showed
a,
a shot where they had all the faces like lined up, and there was a whole array of
I
them.
mean,
I believe that's
there's a
how Leica
reason.
does it. At least
Yeah,
I
they
remember with
do.
Coraline.
Yeah.
It it sounds really really time consuming, but I think it's actually quicker than how it used to be.
Yeah.
How it used to be
Obviously,
done.
obviously, I'm sure they streamlined it, but it's still it goes to show they put a lot of effort into this.
I'm curious
Oh god, yeah.
how that kind of gets flushed out in like a thing. If they have like a box of like 5 by 5, so 25 faces, and
Mhm.
they get the script of like what's being said, and over like each syllable is a letter or a
Well, they
number. It's like
all of it's been pre-recorded. Um, it
well,
kind of has to
live
be.
action with
Yeah.
the movements, which was also shown with like
Yeah.
what were they called, lavs, live action videos, to
Mhm.
know
Mhm.
how it's gonna go. But for like, I'm just curious, like to do the saying a sentence, if it would be 6, 7, 10, 13, 1, 2, 9, and it's like you grab those faces and put them on in that order, kind of thing.
I mean, those guys, they just think that way. I mean, it's I because I agree with you. I don't know how it works because I don't have to think like that. But I'm sure like they get it in where they're just like, oh, I know what face number that is or whatever, and they just
Yeah,
kind of
they're probably either numbered, or there's like an enunciation thing, like
yeah. There's
the
like
the
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 vowel, yeah,
mouth or something. Um, yeah,
because as humans,
there's a
we
has
all
to be an order.
yeah, because as humans we make the same quote unquote like mouth shape for thing. So it's not like, oh, this guy he uses a like an A mouth or or, I don't know. But yeah, these guys they just their brains just wired to think in that way. So they just kind of I mean I'm sure it's labeled, but
Mhm.
Um, any other facts? I'm sure will come up naturally through the podcast. I think.
That's fair.
do I have anything?
Yeah. Anything left over before
Only
we
thing I can
actually dive in?
Only last thing I can remember is the voice actor who did Pinocchio, to get his more genuine acting across through what he was saying, he would end most of his some sentences with dummy, by calling Guillermo a dummy to give more of
Dummy.
a emotion behind what he was saying,
Mm,
which was then just cut from takes.
dummy.
That's kind of funny.
It's kind of funny, dummy.
Guess
I don't
guess
want
Guer-
to
guess
obey, dummy.
guess Guillermo del Toro was okay with verbal abuse.
He's the one that gave the kid the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we'll dive right in then. So we're gonna do the 5 act structure. And this first act will be from. Uh, this is a 5 act structure made for us, not necessarily what the acts are in the film. Got to specify
Mm.
that. Um, the first act will start from just from the opening to when Pinocchio arrives at the church after being born.
Wasn't
So
born, I was created.
yeah, yeah. So who wants to start out with us today first?
I will.
All right.
So I'll just jump all the way to the blue fairy, or I guess forest sprite.
You're gonna skip all of Carlo? Come on, man.
Someone else can talk about Carlo. The forest sprite looked really really cool,
Yeah, they
and got
there
some,
you go.
I guess, religious vibes off of it with the eyes everywhere, kind of like the
Very
realistic angel thing, right?
Hmm.
more akin to the biblical angel, yeah.
Yeah, and it was cool. I like the decision they made to not have the face emote or move or anything with both
Mhm.
that and
Yeah,
the death character. Uh,
definitely
the
gave
the blue
me
lighting was good. I
Sphinx
don't know how.
vibes.
Sorry.
With the unmoving mouths just reminded me of sphinxes, and my main uh, connection to that would be Never-Ending Story, the Sphinx.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Uh, Shoot, lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, the blue lighting looked really good when interacting with all the physical objects. I imagine that was all CG, the lighting in that scene, but because they didn't really cover that in the behind the scenes, they covered the torchlight, but they
That
didn't
was cool.
cover the ethereal blue light.
Hmm.
So whether or not that was somehow practical or just CG, it looked good either way.
Well, I'm sure with the torchlight, how they did it was they used an LED for on the torch to give out light, so they know where it would hit the other puppets.
Mhm.
And I'm guessing if they did that with the torch, they've did it in other elements of the movie. So I wouldn't be surprised if the sprite had, blue lighting on it of an LED to reflect.
Certainly possible. Yeah. Uh, I'll go. Cause I'll go back to the. I think it was he was making the shoes for his son Carlo, Geppetto. Near the beginning. Aesthetically, really really loved the wood dust and
Hmm.
the wood cutting. It looked very very good and it looked real. uh,
Wooden clogs, terrifying.
Are there any other kind of clogs?
Uh,
Maybe
metal clogs.
like there could be someone out there in the world who's like, I collect all different kinds of clogs and has
However, the one from
over a
Nestle
hundred.
Classified.
I mean, there's like leather shoe clogs. Those are those clogs.
Sure.
Wooden ones are probably the most identifiable.
yeah. Um, and then obviously this is kind of just the way for me to lean into actually I kind of they do Carlos backstory fairly well. It does go on a bit long, but having
Yeah.
rewatched it, I think everything is important. Um and I think it's important to note as well that there are biplanes in the distance to help kind of set the time period for when Carlo dies. So
Yeah.
Spoiler
um
alert, he
yeah,
dies.
I know.
You can
Uh
always give spoiler alerts on what we're covering. I mean, we're
Spoiler
going over the
alert.
whole
Hey,
movie.
that was for comedic
we're
effect.
we're in the 30s now for episodes. I think they know. They should know by now.
Well, Ryder, they skipped all the other ones. This is the only one they've actually seen, and they still need to spoiler warning.
Um, and I do like our first song as well, "My Son, My Shining Sun," and then it kind of goes through their whole history. I think it's very important to give us Geppetto's state of mind when everything bad happens and stuff like that. So
Yeah. Something I wish they had done was age Geppetto after no S, Carlo's death. Um, because he didn't age at all, but they said years pass, and we get to see how big that pine cone gets turned
yeah,
into a tree. So a good amount of time has passed. So it would have been nice to see him age because he looked old then,
It,
and he looked
Oh,
old
he
now.
looked
yeah,
older.
this might just be
Yeah.
from me. David Bradley, who did the voice of Geppetto, going from Harry Potter 1 to what he looked like in the documentary, doesn't look like, 20 years has aged him.
Well, that's because he already looked old 20 years ago.
So I'm just saying, I'm using that for Geppetto. Now, it's
Yeah.
not exactly stated of time of how long the distance is, other than saying years. So with Crimson, I
Well,
do
he
kind of
died
agree
in
with that, but it could just be
well he
2.
He
well
died
he
in the
died in
presumably
1916.
he died in the
Yeah.
Great War, which is World War One, and then we're in the interwar period between World War One and World War Two. And since we have fascist Italy, we're presumably in the early 1930s. At least 15 years have passed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Geppetto's looking good. He's got good, skincare.
it's
I don't know.
true.
The
It,
amount
it,
of detail they put into this, I just wish they did that.
Well, that's the
it,
problem.
it, it,
I mean,
yeah, it's definitely a small thing. I'm gonna kind of Crimson side. They could have done something to kind of better show the age, but it's just needs to be noted that he really didn't.
Well,
I
Apparently,
it
he
mean,
would
didn't
be a
age all
very
that much.
different movie if he was in a wheelchair the whole time.
That's not what I'm
true.
saying,
Okay,
though.
that's not at all what I'm saying.
That's not what we're saying, though.
Like, if he was like mid 40s in the beginning of this, and then he's 55 or something for the rest of the movie that we get to see, I think that's a reasonable number. Something else I wrote down was the age gap between him and his son. It's a large gap, which happens. Not a problem. It's just an observation I had. It seems to be quite a gap.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, like, I think they would have been better to make him look younger rather than older for the flashback stuff. Because then, like, the normal characters that they have for the rest of the movie, I think is fine for the older Geppetto. So if I were to pick one that they couldn't probably have done, they would have a younger looking Geppetto for the earlier scenes with Carlo.
Do you think it would
So
have been
then,
easier on the puppeteers to do a different hair color to make him younger, or for like his hair to
and they
be
kind of did.
I
shorter?
Because when he was with Carlo, it was gray, but it still had some darkness in it. And then by the time he's making Pinocchio, it's completely white, and it's receded more than it had before.
Was it different? I don't
It was,
think it
yeah.
was.
having seen it twice, I didn't see that.
I
So
don't think it
Well,
was.
I don't know if
I'm
it
gonna
was just
watch
a
it right
lighting
now. So
thing.
you keep going.
Oh,
Yeah, get some proof. Prove me wrong.
uh, um, let's see. Do you got anything you want to talk about, Springs? I'll throw this at you.
very beginning, which wasn't mentioned in the documentary, except for the beginning of the movie, was said that the Jim Henson Company worked on this,
Yeah, I wonder what
but
yeah, I don't know what capacity.
no, it wasn't really talked about. It was talked about. Shadow Machine was the other company.
Yeah, Shadow Machine. Yeah, I think the Oregon. There's two headquarters. There's one in Los Angeles and one in Oregon. I believe it was one in Oregon they used.
Yes, but I just
Yeah.
don't know how much the Jim Henson Company did for this film.
Unless they're just affiliated because it's puppets. I'm not sure. I don't really know. 'Cause I was like, oh, Jim Henson. That's interesting. I thought it was Shadow Machine or whatever, but then Shadow Machine was listed too. So unless they hired work, extras or something, extra hands or whatever from
Could
Jim
be.
Henson Company, and so they had to be like, well, we worked on this, so you have to give us a credit or whatever. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Certainly
Uh,
possible.
with the pine cone bit where he's planting it,
Yeah,
I immediately thought, I don't think this is how it works. So I spent like 20 minutes researching pine cones. I had
you
no idea there were
absolute maniac.
I had no idea there were male and female pine cones that were like visibly different to each other. No
Uh-huh.
idea.
Yeah,
Um,
that's my field for biology for you.
it wouldn't work. Burying a pine cone wouldn't work to plant a tree.
uh,
The
you would
seeds
be
actually
correct.
have to leave the cone and get buried at a proper time and temperature.
Yep,
So
you would be correct with that. I wrote that down as a note. It is a nitpick because I know what they're just trying to speed through this, but it is something that you know should be
Well, and
noted.
it's a good visual. I
Yeah,
the sacrificing the science part of it for a very good visual, which I'm okay with in the long
like I said
run.
it's just a nitpick. It
Yeah,
doesn't break the
yeah,
story. It's just how
I
it
know.
is. At least it doesn't break the story for me.
it
I won't speak for
breaks the
Crimson.
story because that tree is what Pinocchio's
That is
made out of.
impossible. You are a toy.
If we didn't have that tree, the movie wouldn't happen. No,
I guess
Just
that's also
something I noticed.
another thing to show time changes the growth of a tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I think that's the major one because everything else is just the interwar period like propaganda that we see in the background. Um, and I think it's an interesting choice. I think to set Pinocchio as the fairy tale inside the 1930s interwar period.
Yeah.
I had to sit on that one for a bit because obviously I'm used to the more fairy tale aspect of it, but I actually think it's grown on me. I kind of like the idea of, in this instance, kind of I was gonna say modernizing a fairy tale, but it's not really modernizing it. It's more like
Creative
Tweaking it.
liberties. The creative.
creative
Yeah.
liberties
Yeah.
with it. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's a very interesting take, and I think there is a point with it. So I do like it. Like they didn't do it like just for the sake of doing it. They clearly had an intensive purpose with doing
His hair is definitely grayer.
Okay.
it. Well,
Oh, point
I'm
for Sinister.
comparing.
He's the one who pulled it up. He's got it.
I It's okay. It's it's not as drastic as I was thinking in my head, but it's definitely a different shade. Like it's just a tad darker
It's noticeable.
earlier. It's noticeable. And his hair is definitely receded more. So, but I knew the hair had receded more, but I wasn't confident on the color. But yeah, it's definitely whiter when he's making Pinocchio.
I do like.
Okay.
I believe it's still with the story of like Carlo. There's a nice panning camera transition from the kitchen table to Carlo in bed, where it goes behind
Mm.
Geppetto's back,
Yes, that is a good one. I know
and
which one you're talking.
with the behind the scenes of showing the monkey. I can't remember his name. I didn't write down his name.
Masatora.
Spazzatura. I wrote down Gideon from the Disney one. Um,
Gideon.
from the behind the scenes of how it goes from the like traversing through the carnival to knock on the door was all one shot to get there. So I figured this transition of turn could have also been a creative one shot, or it could have easily just been a cut on the black to get to the next. I don't know. That wasn't shown, but
I mean, that's the cool thing when you use. I mean, they use digital cameras, but I'm just saying, like analog stuff like this, where it's all in the camera. Like you can kind of do stuff that you can't really do with digital. That it's almost looks like magic. I mean, so I'm sure that what they did was they just set up the shot for the kitchen, and then they had to keep everything or had to match up everything to the same place for the bedroom. So then it filed along.
Mhm. That's fair.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
mean, it's a lot of work.
it's one of those things where like I've missed stop motion, so there's that inner part of me that really loved this movie because of that. Um, just because doing everything when it's stop motion, everything has to be intentional, like with most animation.
Yeah.
Uh, like there's no, I mean, you can do work in post, but it's like CGI and stuff like that, but it's much harder. So.
It's something where you can't cover up. It's much harder to cover up the mistakes in a stop motion and especially in a hand done animation than CG. And I'm not knocking either because I think both have their
Mhm.
place and both do thing. The thing you can do CG that you can't do with hand animation, and the same thing, vice versa.
Yeah.
So I, but I will say I've always loved the stop motion stuff, and it definitely is something where I'm like, every time I see it, I'm like, you know what, this is like up a notch for me, just in general, because I know how much work has to go in to actually make these things.
Mhm. Yeah. Uh, I'll go from a compliment to a criticism. The pine
Go on
cone
then.
survives a bombing,
Well, yeah,
which is
it's made of sturdy Italian pine.
after
it's got a
you mean
point
when
to
the
that.
church got hit?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the pine cone just flies out.
Yeah,
it should have been burned. Yeah,
I don't.
I
I have more complaints that are very similar to this later on in the film, but I figured I'd start
Yeah,
small here.
This is
I hear.
a spoiler warning for a different movie, but it did remind me of a scene from Big
Spoiler
Hero
warning.
6
Oh,
of how
bringing
one
up that,
article
huh?
thing survives.
Oh, okay. I
Oh,
see what
stop
you're
talking
saying.
about the baseball
Yeah.
hat. Come on, man.
I'm,
It's
it
over.
just sounded it feels familiar.
Field from
But I will say a nice detail is when they're in the church, the priest leaves,
Yeah,
which is also a bit
on his
odd
bike.
that he leaves and accepts them to come in. I guess because they are working, but
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it's priests come and go. Like they don't stay in the church. So that didn't really bother me.
They
Though
have a life.
I suppose like
they don't lock up the church is the thing.
well, it's also 1930s Italy, or not well, not 1920s Italy. Well, pre
Oh, Carlo's
whatever.
still alive. Well,
this
Carlo's
is World War
Yeah,
around.
One
yeah.
Italy.
World War One,
19
Italy,
teens.
19 teen. Uh, so it's everybody feels fairly safe. I don't know. You can read into that if you want.
Well, the
Uh,
community was very nice and warm at that
yeah.
period, as we
Yeah.
saw as they walked through town.
Yeah.
Um,
Even our future fascist Podesta was like good model Italian citizen. And he's a butcher.
Yeah.
Yeah, buongiorno.
John. But yeah, I thought there was going to be, as far as the pine cone surviving the explosion, I thought there might be like a callback because earlier on, Carlo finds a pine cone that is damaged, and then it would the his perfect pine cone would be damaged like him, or could
Something
have.
with that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I
So
get
I
that.
don't. I was kind of in a similar boat, but I just for the I guess the callback element of connection. I'm okay with it surviving it, but it is something to critique.
Pine cones survive forest fires. Who knows?
Only
Could
you can
survive a
survive
bomb.
pine cones.
Yeah, direct bomb strike is a little different.
But that's a fire, though. There's no
You
force involved at all.
uh,
yeah. Um,
I think you should talk about our boy Sebastian Cricket. What do we think
Yes.
of
I
his
like that they
narration?
make him. I like that they make him kind of a blowhard early on.
He's
I would
far
all
more
around the
likable than the
world,
original animated.
Paris. Check out
You
what's
say,
go there.
did you say he was far more likable in the original?
Yeah, than the original. The
Oh, okay.
original was annoying. In this, he didn't really come off as annoying to me.
Well, he's
Uh
also used sparingly.
This one,
yeah,
he's not necessarily a conscience.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
true.
because Pinocchio doesn't listen to him.
at all.
Yeah, really. Kind of like the
uh,
original.
that does get into some of my criticisms, but
Yeah.
uh, I think most of those could be saved for later.
Mm.
Um, I think I introducing Cricket is very like enthusiastic, wanting to write memoirs. And how he gets roped into helping Pinocchio, I think, is also
Yeah, hey, that's
interesting.
my home.
Yeah, it's like I guess I get that. It's like you're not
Yeah.
allowed to. The old man already fucked up my home.
I
um,
it's another just creative liberty, but in the Disney version, Jiminy Cricket is with Pinocchio for the majority of the time, where in this one, Pinocchio's pretty much on his own, and
Mm.
Geppetto has Sebastian with him, and I think that not only changes up the story, but it also the movie doesn't have um, his cat and goldfish,
Yeah.
was it
That's Disney
Figaro and
invented.
Cleo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah, those are
Sebastian kind of takes the role of that
a
uh,
little bit.
because he's
uh,
with
I
Geppetto.
would say Spazzatura and Sebastian kind of fill up those other two roles as well, or fill into those other two roles slightly.
Yeah,
Obviously they're not meant. Obviously Spazzatura is meant to, be Gideon and all that, but I think it also fits into that as well.
It's been so long since I've seen the original Pinocchio. I don't even remember. Yeah, I don't remember the role of the cat or the
I
fish.
forgot about the cat. I remember the fish. I couldn't remember the cat.
yeah. I want to point out that Sebastian Kirk keeps a portrait of a pessimist philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer by his desk.
Weapons? Hmm, did not catch
Just
that.
it's a nice little detail I like. So
Was that one of the people he's like lived with, or just someone
uh,
he admires?
I think it's just someone he admires because he talks about his history. And he doesn't the pessimist philosopher doesn't really come up, but it's the portrait in his room.
Yeah.
So
Uh, so something kind of bugged me a little bit. I don't think it would be a knock to the movie or anything, but the fact that Pinocchio wasn't looking like Carlo when he got made kind of bugged me a little bit
Oh, his left half is.
because not really, just the ear. Um, and they talk about that behind the scenes where he starts very detailed on the ear side and then to the other side of the head gets sloppy because he gets more drunk and cares
Yeah,
less.
I kind of like that.
But so it's not like his left side's pristine, the other one's good looking or not bad looking.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, it just doesn't resemble him at all. Even the hair he was going for on the good side doesn't look like Carlo's hair. Uh, yeah, because it was definitely his intention to make him look like Carlo, right?
I think so.
yes,
Somewhat.
Because
I think
he
so.
Yeah,
finished the body and just had the picture where the head kind of is, and then started the head.
Yeah, and he
Yeah.
complains that he had finished the head the following day,
Mhm.
and then he tries to crawl off to bed, but
yeah,
falls
yeah,
down the stairs.
as we all have.
Yes, fair bit of us
His
have.
feet were good and heavy.
I
It lead
think
shoes,
it's
lead
it's
clogs.
it's not a nitpick because it is stated that the spirits are forest spirits, correct? Sebastian calls them.
Forest
Yeah.
sprites. Yeah,
I'm gonna be honest. I actually thought the forest sprites were different from the angels that we deal with in the film.
I I think that
I think they're different.
Like
Well,
I thought they were entirely separate entities, just by the virtue of the fact of
I
how the spirits in the forest look in the brief shot that we have of them, and then
but
our
they're all
angel who gives
eyeballs,
life.
yeah.
and then the angel's full of eyeballs. There's a
Well, she's not.
aesthetic
She's
correlation.
supposed to look like a biblical angel. I don't think she actually is. We
Well,
don't have any.
in the behind the scenes, they
There you
describe
go.
her as life and the other one death.
Yeah.
Uh, so they are more important than the other spirits, whatever.
But what I'm
uh,
saying is we can't call it angel and then or something because it's not
oh,
technically. Yeah, that's what I
no,
was saying.
angel inspiration on design.
Yes, that's what I mean. Technically, they're the name of it is the wood sprite or the woods spirit
Yeah,
or whatever. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fair.
I know what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah, my thing was that because it was stated of woods or forest, it's the reason why we don't see any others throughout the film. There's no like
Well,
spray
and
in
yeah.
there's
the
also
crowds of the carnival or you know
But they also
um,
Yeah,
say
the
they
ocean.
keep
the,
to
they
themselves.
stay away. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't interfere
Yeah,
with human stuff.
typically we have an
Yeah,
exception. Yes,
only for the loneliest of individuals.
yes.
Um, no, I kind of like the little the drunken Geppetto, creating, and just this kind of almost like a blind, like a fury. Like it's really he
Blind
does it
artistic
very
rage.
yeah blind artistic rage of drunken wood carving. Uh, and especially because you see earlier in the movie, he's actually a very talented wood carver, and his work is very very good. And so it's interesting, what kind of or the sloppiness of and because the hands are really really good, and then the body's kind of and the head, and he just starts nailing the nails in the back, and it's just because in the like the Disney one, he's like perfect. He's a perfect marionette, kind of
Yeah,
doll, and then in this one he's there's parts of him that are kind of done pretty well, and then there's other parts of him that are just so shoddy, and like it's I don't know. It kind of makes it more endearing, and it makes it kind of have more symbolist meaning.
Yeah, the imperfect creation.
Yeah, exactly.
I could agree with that. Let's see. I kind of like Cricket's reaction. He just finished moving in, and his house gets cut down, and he's just
Oh,
screaming at
come
him the
on!
whole time.
This is a house of nightmares.
Yeah, when he said, I think it was when he said House of Nightmares, I went, is this wood cursed? And is this cursed wood being turned into a dummy? Because I've read that tale before.
Ooh,
For anyone
yeah.
familiar with Slappy in the Goosebumps.
No, 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 no. We don't talk about Slappy. We don't
Then
talk
again,
about Slappy.
he was made from coffin wood and a
Coffin
soul of
wood.
an ancient sorcerer, I believe. But yeah.
I thought you were going to talk about the ventriloquist from Batman.
Oh,
He was carved
Scarface.
from yeah, because he was carved from the hanging
He
tree.
was also, yeah, that's right.
A little bit more of a, I guess a you fact that I would assume would come from you.
Both fit. But
Both
yes,
fit.
Geppetto wasn't necessarily the role of the ventriloquist in this, so
No,
Yeah. Do do we have any thoughts about the revivifying Pinocchio scene where Cricket's talking to the life spirit? Any comments on
About
that?
the deal with the wish.
Uh, yes, about the deal over the wish, but also like just the spirit's reasoning for coming to help and Cricket. I guess almost being selfish in kind of a way where he wants to protect his home.
I
So
Oh yeah, he was definitely
well, at
selfish.
this
yeah,
point he's not necessarily attached to anyone.
yeah,
yeah. I don't. I just because of I think I mean I love the original Disney version, but I think every version after that they kind of make the cricket almost like super like overly sweet or like overly like a nice character.
he's just a normal dude in this.
Yeah, I like that he's just kind of like he's being imposed upon in some form, or he's just happens to he's just in like the right place at the right time, or in his situation the wrong place at the wrong time, or from his point of view, and it kind of makes it he is a cricket, but it makes it more human in some way because he's kind of not he's not perfect. He's sort of imperfect,
Yeah.
again, it's which I think is a big theme of this movie is imperfections.
hmm Um, I think one of the quotes I wrote down for this is, like, "I'm not a governess, madam. I'm a novelist, a raconteur, currently immersed in writing my memoirs."
Raconteur.
I actually really liked. I think Cricket ended walking. I ended up walking away with Cricket being my favorite character, but that's just
Yeah.
because I relate a lot to being a
What?
writer and being constantly interrupted. So,
Ewan McGregor. He's waited his whole
and
life to be able to say raconteur.
it's true.
He almost got
Um,
away with it in the live action Beauty and the Beast.
did he?
Well, I
Was he
mean,
the
he was Lemire
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
but
for French
yeah.
wordings, but the actual word, no, it wasn't. It wasn't written out of the script or anything.
The beast.
um,
Never saw that.
but yes, he does get granted one wish in order to help guide Pinocchio, at least the best he can, which is where the quote from we said at the beginning comes from. Is this scene as
Mhm.
well?
I do like that it's kind of also it they make it a fairy tale because it's told from the not from the perspective of Jiminy Cricket, but through not Jiminy Cricket, Sebastian.
Yeah.
Uh, it's gonna take a bit. Um, that it's kind of he's a narrator, or in the present tense mostly.
hmm
That's how or past tense, but it's presently happening. Kind of cool.
Uh, all right. So Crimson, you got another place you want to jump us to?
Um,
1920s Poland.
I'll
No, thank you.
jump to an issue I had, which stems from this beginning. So in Pinocchio, is alive and he's running around the house like, "Whoa, what's a clock? What's a hammer?" All being
Yeah.
curious
Yes.
about everything.
Uh,
Yodelity, or
Everything's
whatever.
new.
Uh, it implies he doesn't know anything, but throughout the movie, he doesn't question anything anymore.
Yeah,
So
I
it
don't like that
doesn't
either.
make any sense at all.
They do like hardcore naivety here, which is our first scene, and then transitions into like he stops doing that altogether, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, pretty much
Kind of
stops
does it with
after when he
words.
questions
yeah,
school.
kind of does it. Yeah, with
He doesn't
words
do it with
instead of just
items.
object. Yeah, because kind of once you know what a hammer, a bedpan, and
Well,
everything
yeah,
else,
he
you kind of know
asks
what
what a
everything is.
burden is. I
Yeah,
think he asks
it's
Candlewick something when they're talking.
yeah, and they also ask what war is and tries to
Yeah,
figure out what war is about.
Yeah.
So like there are things he does he's curious about, but it hardcore transitions because it's a different level of naivety of being like you don't know what your experiences are
yeah.
to just then asking like what words. It's a
I think
it's basically you're jumping from a year and a half year old to like a 5-year old. It's a very very
yeah,
big jump.
and
Yeah, that's a
Um,
good example.
I yeah, I think, and again, it's just in the nature of I think probably the thing of itself, like the stop
Well, I mean,
motion and
it's
everything.
beneficial because it would be annoying if
It's
he had
yeah,
asked the entire
exactly.
movie about stuff.
yeah, yeah. It is. I understand why it's done. But like even I think this could have been somewhat fixed because he's already obviously capable of speech. I think
Mhm.
the way to go about fixing this is probably uh actually having him attend school a few times before the plot kicks in.
No,
Just so we have something of him like quickly grasping, learning almost. We know he is quickly getting up to speed, that sort of thing.
no, I don't.
It
Yeah, it's
it's not
a
needed, but it does hurt the character consistency a little bit. It's not a destroy. It doesn't destroy it, but it just needs to be noted.
yeah. I'm just thinking of it in the way of like, if he was like that for the whole movie, it would be really annoying. But then if
Yeah,
he was like how he is later in the movie, where it's just like him trying to pick up certain things, that wouldn't really make sense because it, y- it's a hard. I think you're right that it needs to be balanced more, but it is definitely a hard thing to balance out because you kind of have to have this like babe lost in the woods part of it, or else it doesn't feel like there's a growth. But then if he doesn't have, but then if he, it again, I think you are right that they kind of drop it a little bit too quickly. But
Well,
I think it's
something that
oh,
would be kind of cool
yeah,
to fix it,
yeah,
or at least work with it, is say that Pinocchio can't sleep, and he just stays up all night listening to Sebastian write and learning through his writings
yeah,
about the world. They could do that in a quick little scene, and it would imply enough to where he's learning during night. Uh, uh,
yeah. I'd be okay with that too. Like even and that would be a theme you could continue to when after he and Candlewick are in like the fascista school or whatever.
fascista.
The fascista school. He could also stay up and potentially
uh,
read something about war or something like that, which would be another layer I think to add on because
Yeah,
there's a way to work it in, but like I said, it's just it has to be noted.
yeah. No, I got you.
'Cause he
S-
technically doesn't need to sleep. He's not a real boy.
yeah,
He breathes, which is interesting in of itself when
and
And
it
he
he
somehow
drinks.
becomes more
and he somehow
prevalent.
drinks hot chocolate, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
stuff like that. But
um,
I think I'm pretty good for this act.
all right, Springs. What about you?
Um, when Geppetto opens up the little cabinet that he throws him in after his musical number, and he has a glove on his nose, I couldn't tell if that was a jab at Disney in any way because it's one of the classic gloves with the lines on the back of the palm,
Oh,
but
like the mouse nose, yeah,
yeah,
Mickey
but
Mouse
it
Yeah.
nose, hand.
also the thumb piece was probably behind it, so it only gave off four fingers, which is classic Disney characters having four fingers. So I didn't know if it
Mm,
was a jab at that anyway, and The only difference was that it's blue instead of white, and I didn't know if that symbolized anything.
Hmm.
I don't know.
I don't
It's
think it would have been a
possible everything's
jab.
intentional, but I don't know.
I don't know if it would have been a jab because I think he even stated that he was a big fan of Disney, but he definitely wanted to kind of separate himself because he knew
Well,
that the
he probably means more of a nod than a jab.
yeah. Plus,
Uh,
it's around
That could
that
be.
time where that kind of glove would be prevalent.
Well, true, but we don't see like other characters wearing gloves or Geppetto in the gloves
No,
wearing
yeah.
that set of
yeah.
gloves. So it's kind of like a
There's
one scene and kind of promptly shown.
I'm sure if it's anything, it's a nod. Yeah. I don't think it would be like a
Sorry,
jab or
jab
anything.
probably isn't the right. Yeah, nod
Yeah.
is more
No.
appropriate.
Yeah.
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 I think. Yeah. Okay. Sinister. How about you? Got anything to wrap this act up, or do you have any last thoughts
Um.
before I guide us along?
mm, No, I think we've covered pretty much all the main stuff that I had. So we can
All
move
right.
along.
Then I will end us off with the cricket is about to start a musical number to help guide Pinocchio because Pinocchio wants to go to church after hearing his father's going to church. And the door gets smashed on him, and Pinocchio just sings through the streets as he's looking for to go to church. Um,
And it's very
Which will be
pretty.
both our classic reoccurring gags in this movie.
yes,
Sebastian getting hurt and
interrupted from singing.
yes.
Oh, the pain! I can't handle the
Oh,
pain.
the pain.
Yeah, he should be a cockroach with how many times he gets clashed
I,
in
Oh,
I
this.
I did write that on my notes. I'm like, I like that he. I know it's a cricket for continuity, but he should be a cockroach because it'd make more sense.
Doesn't Geppetto call him a cockroach?
he does, yeah.
He does, yes.
Or
I
does he
wonder
call
if
him a termite?
I wonder. I wonder. No, he gets called a cockroach. I wonder if.
Okay.
I wonder if he is like. It's kind of a joke that he's maybe a bastard somehow.
Well, actually, his name's Cricket doesn't mean he is one.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Sebastian the crick. Yeah, because
Maybe.
he
Maybe.
has wings, doesn't he?
Crickets have wings.
Crickets.
That's how they make the sounds.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
their
They
legs.
they ru- well they rub their wings and legs and all that nonsense
Oh,
stuff.
okay.
Yeah.
He's just
And
another Guillermo del Toro
Hey,
monster.
Yeah.
Crimson. Next time you say that, don't do that in public, okay? Like, you don't gotta
okay,
call me out like that, okay?
I-
Just pass it to me after,
I'll
all
hold it back. I'll send you a note.
right?
All right. So I guess from there we will start at the church scene for Act Two, and we will go up to when Pinocchio leaves with the circus.
Is it a
Leaves with
circus?
circus.
Carnival.
They
So
call
who
it
wants?
carnival.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
it's
Is
because it's
circus?
Italian.
Yeah. So who wants to start us off for this next bit?
I will.
All
When
Oh,
right.
you
when
volunteer as tribute?
look, I don't know his name, so I'm just gonna say Ron Perlman and his son and the priest come to Geppetto's home.
I think I
Geppetto.
just referred to him as the Podesta. Is all he's referred
Yeah, I
Yeah,
to.
think
but
that's all
it's
they call.
yeah.
Well, first off, Candlewick is certainly a nod to Lampwick, and being that I connected that to Lampwick, I knew where this character was gonna wind up eventually, somewhere in this creative storyline, which did fit. So that was kind of like a freebie of kind of knowing the character in that sense.
Hmm.
Mhm.
But what I want to point out is that Geppetto isn't wearing anything red. However, uh, the father has an armband, Candlewick has a scarf, and the priest has a uh, waist sash that are all red.
Oh god, they're all ghosts.
And also the firelight is also an orange red, but that's just me.
True. I just meant like they're banded together kind of thing,
Yeah.
Oh, they're
I
banded
I
and
also want to call. I think it
makes
was here
Geppetto
where
an
I noticed
outlier.
that. I wrote it down here. The priest is like the claymation for the priest makes him look villainous almost.
Yeah,
It's kind of the hunched look,
Yeah, the kind of
the
hunched look.
skinny, the bowl
The
cut.
the Three Stooges
Yeah,
mohair.
Uh, I got something that was I'm gonna note down as well for the film. The fire does not hurt Pinocchio in this scene.
Hey, thank you. I'll write that down later.
I'll let you carry the
Here's
later
Joe
one then.
Payne.
I don't know if the
Putting
later
it
one
down
actually
here.
hurt him.
It did. He said it.
He's maybe
He
he's
said,
smarter.
"Oh, this hurts a lot more than the hot chocolate."
He actually complains about it
No,
hurting. It is
well,
something he
no, I don't think
literally
he says
says.
it hurt. I thought he said
Yes,
it.
He
he
said it
does.
hurt.
I will
I
pull it
thought he
up
said
right
Oh,
it was.
now.
he
I
says it
thought he
hurts,
said
but
it
I
was.
don't know if that's trying to get empathy out of him to stop. I don't know if it
Uh,
actually does
I
hurt him
know.
because, well,
I know he said.
no,
I'm pretty sure he said hotter than the hot chocolate. I don't know if he said it
no.
hurts more than the
Look,
hot chocolate.
Sinister, I think we're in and out because if it wasn't hurting him, his nose would grow, and it didn't grow,
True. It's true.
so it was hurting
Uh,
him.
yep. So I'm just noting it down here because it's gonna be relevant later, obviously.
Yeah.
These are his new feet. His old feet didn't have feeling. There you go.
Got a point.
Yeah, the original ones that actually got blessed by a fairy didn't feel anything. The ones
No.
made later, the prosthetics, felt it.
Hey, maybe the new ones are the only things that feel pain
Mm.
because
Mhm.
they're not blessed by the fairy. We don't know.
Alright.
We won't know.
I mean, I'm just gonna say they didn't think about
It's
that.
No,
it's inconsistent.
there.
Yeah.
If we're going on little nitpicks, I also have another nitpick of when Pinocchio's in bed and Geppetto's inside his chest writing. The gravity of Geppetto does not match
Darn it! I thought I was the only one that noticed that.
because
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
I
it's a bit of a
have that
standing
written
problem.
down.
basically
I
sideways to the hole because it's on
yeah,
his
I
right.
yeah, I'm impressed that his house is intact with all the rolling about that fucking Pinocchio does.
Oh,
Darn it, Sprinks. That was the only like continuity problem I caught.
Oh,
Was
I
that?
got that pretty clear because
yeah.
it showed earlier like him rolling around and actually being affected by it. In this part, he's just standing completely up with the
He
hole on his
says,
right.
okay. Uh, he says,
So,
"Hey, that's hot. Worse than chocolate." And then he says, "Ow, ow, ow."
okay, so he can feel
Just,
it, but does not
Yeah.
mean.
Ow,
Yeah.
ow, ow.
well, I'm just saying you were misquoting the line, and I was pretty confident that I knew what the line was.
But he doesn't technically say you're hurting me.
Oh my god.
No,
He says
Oh,
ow, ow,
I'm
ow.
just saying.
I
Hey,
didn't disagree with
good
that
grief.
part. I just
We're
said the quote was not correct.
he could
I
be
didn't
I
say
acting.
that
didn't
he
say I was
didn't say.
quoting it perfectly.
He's a
Yes.
star. He knows how to act.
You're actually fucking with us, right, Springs?
I think he is.
Oh, I'm
I'm not
weighing the
fucking
odds.
with it.
I'm 50-50. I can go either way.
What?
What side do you want me to fight on?
The correct one. That he's getting hurt.
Okay.
He's hurting. Okay. We'll get there when we get there.
Technically, he is turned away when he says "ow, ow, ow," so you can't tell if his nose is growing or not.
Well, it didn't
Well,
get cut
he's,
off. So
yeah.
next time you see him, if it was longer.
I don't.
If it was there
I
at all.
honestly don't care about dying on this hill because who fucking cares? I mean, come on.
Well, the Count died on that hill.
No,
So-
he died on that cliff.
Wow.
No, he died on the rock in the water.
His back just.
He died from gravity.
We
The
aren't
rock
even
in the
much.
water
far
is a
yet. Why are
little
we
hill.
talking about this?
Yeah.
Come on, we're Act
We're-
2, church
we're
scene.
fine.
Go.
So the way that the townsfolk react to Pinocchio is interesting.
Demon.
I don't.
devil,
Well, not just.
demon.
It seemed very tame to me, especially
Oh, I thought they were gonna string him up.
with Podesta. Goes to Geppetto's house and is very cordial about it. You know, I'm here to make sure the puppet is safe for the townsfolk. You know,
Do you think
why aren't you trying to kill it or something?
do you think Geppetto's
It seems weird.
reputation in the town and because he defends it helps?
No,
Like he goes up,
No,
accepts
'cause
the
by that
hug,
point-
lifts it up.
I think the only
No.
thing that he benefited was the priest, because they were gonna. There was probably going to be a mob after Pinocchio if the priest didn't speak up. I think. But,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do think the Podesta being calm and collected is fine. I wasn't. I mean, if your go-to is like I'm gonna kill you, that's you know fairly
not really
evil.
villain.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, well, he definitely gets an arc to get there, but I like that it at least starts out like this, where it's
Well, it's mimicking the arc of fascism. It starts out and everybody's like, yeah, this is
he's
actually
very
a,
he's very
a
polite
decent,
and cordial,
yeah.
sure.
It's this is this guy's pretty charismatic and everything, and then
Yeah, he's bringing Germany jobs, guys. Come on,
yeah, so
fixing the
kind of
economy.
fits, kind of fits. It's like, this guy's kind of agreeable, and then
Wants
it's
to
like,
make sure
oh,
that your
oh
plumbing's all
no,
good in the basement.
exactly. But no, I think I agree. It's a little bit where I feel like there should have been a little bit more of a rabble rousing or some, a little bit more of that. But I think for how the character arcs turn out, I think it's better that there's kind of like this slow burn for it, or slow rise with it, not just like instantly, like
Yeah, I mean, the
Well,
Bethesda is observant enough to know that he's a kid, acting like a kid.
yeah, it's not
So
a monster. Well, it's a monster, but
you
it's
know,
a child monster.
we
Um,
don't see here that creatures are commonplace. The spirits are their own little thing that we don't see interact with
oh, okay.
society. We don't
Your
know what
issue
that
is more
is.
like there should have been more reaction to the fact that it's just an unknown.
Yeah, because people are afraid of the unknown. That's even stated in this at some point,
and
right?
especially the
Yeah,
Italians.
I
Yeah.
Yeah,
I did write that it said that Sebastian could see the spirits, but not humans,
Well, he is a fairy folk.
though the sprite could be seen.
Also, though, Geppetto's like really surprised when the cricket starts
cricket
talking.
talk. Yeah, that was a good example too.
So,
How come you can talk? Is it normal for crickets to talk?
holy
Geppetto says
shit,
otherwise.
you can talk.
um,
Oh gosh,
but
that yeah, sister, that a Tom and Jerry reference. That's good. Gosh,
That's something we will
um,
cover someday.
maybe. Um, yeah, it just the the reactions of a creature, a monster of in
A
some eyes.
creature, a monster.
In some eyes, with these people, I would see them view it as a
Okay.
monster. They call it a demon. Um, it
Well,
just seems
they're
very
God
tame.
fearing
they
people.
don't
Yeah.
know any
I,
better.
I would picture like a Frankenstein mob for this. That's what I would picture.
Get your torch and pitchforks. Doesn't that bother you?
Cotton candy, get your cotton. Can't have an angry mob without cotton candy.
Um, I don't think they haven't. My whole thing is they don't go straight to Titch Torch things because Pinocchio doesn't really do anything wrong. He's just
I
They
interrupted
don't.
them.
That
what
doesn't.
Crimson is saying is just that the nature of him being what he is would cause a significant alarm.
If you have a kind talking dragon, people are still going to want to kill the dragon, even if it's kind.
Yeah, it's true. People are afraid of things that are different, even if they're nice.
I can side more with the fact that this world is trying to focus more on the realism and try to,
Well, that's real though.
well, trying to grab. I mean,
Yeah, they
it's
also
not.
bring that up in the
I'm
behind the
saying like,
scenes.
for example, the dragon. It's not like Pete's dragon, where it's Disney Magic World and everyone's happy and gets along.
Well, yeah,
It's
because
trying
like I
to
mean, like the Disney Pinocchio, the original one. There's like giant talking cat
Animals,
and
yeah.
fox. Yeah, and nobody seems to care about that.
I think what would fix this scene, I think, would be more curiosity on the part. Like, if we're gonna go to the fire scene, I think I'd want the Podesta to be inspecting Pinocchio more, like up close.
Yeah,
I
I'm willing
think that
to.
I think because like I think for the mob, I think the Podesta and the priest would be able to talk everybody down.
Yeah, because they
And
have a
then
lot of.
once they go and see Geppetto in private, I think if like there is an obvious effort on the Podesta's part, like he's inspecting Pinocchio, like he's like picking him up and looking at him and stuff like that.
questioning things about the nails in his
Yeah,
back and where's his other
Yeah,
ear or something. That would make more sense
something.
rather than just him going, "Oh, draft him for war."
Yeah, it would be something a little more in that vein of where okay, I can then buy that at least they're curious about it rather than just being
yeah,
100% into mob mentality or 100% we're just accepting this as exists now.
yeah.
I
Because
agree.
I do agree with the Podesta and the priest. They are kind of the two, I mean, most powerful people in the village because one is the religious figure, and the other one's the governmental figure. So they would have a significant pull. I think the
Mhm.
only issue with that is that they just don't kind of show them interacting in that same way to reinforce that. I think it's there, but I just don't think it's there enough to where I could say one way or the other.
Yeah, I'll pass this to you, Sinister. What you got?
Yeah, let's see. I'm trying to. He it's I like the there's a scene when he because in the church explosion that killed Carlo, it also damaged the roof and the statue of Jesus that Geppetto
The
had made.
crucifix. Yeah.
Yeah, the crucifix. Um, and and the priest even mentions when uh, Pinocchio shows up at church, he's very upset with Geppetto for making this thing and not actually fixing the crucifix that from years and years ago. And so Geppetto actually goes and finishes and fixes it. And there's a I kind of I it this is probably not like the super deepest thing, but for this kind of movie, I thought it was kind of deep. Of uh, Pinocchio has the moment where he says, why do they all like him and they don't like me? Of the Jesus wooden crucifix
Yeah.
because they're made the same wood, and I that was it's not the
It was nice.
deepest thing, but I was like, you know what,
And one of the
that's
things
something.
I do talk about, or had talked about off the podcast about the movie, is that I think the movie plays a lot of lip service to deep ideas and thematic elements. I don't think the movie follows through with all of
Yeah,
them.
no, I
And
wouldn't. Yeah, I
I
wouldn't even
think
say
because
that either.
I think the story, like, it's paying lip service to the idea of him asking a very simple question of, like, with the crucifix, everyone likes the crucifix, but not me, is very definitely paying lip service to what could be a very interesting philosophical discussion. And
Mm.
I was kind of annoyed that they kind of cut it short.
Yeah,
It's very, very simplified very quickly, and then it goes to the Carlos book thing.
yeah.
Um,
I
but I do
well,
like
'cause
the lip service. I'm not saying I don't like it.
yeah, yeah.
I'm just noting that while it's there, they don't really follow through on much of it.
Well, and I think especially because it's Pinocchio sort of child personified throughout most of this
Mhm.
movie of kind of naivete and what have you. Um, and I think kids a lot of the times will say just like really profound things because they just have no
Or ask profound questions at least.
or ask profound yeah, exactly. Probably more often ask profound questions than say profound things. But that kind of make you question something that you would never question before because you just are used to it. So I even in this situation, I kind of like it because it is an interesting counter. They don't really embellish on it further than that, which I'm a little disappointed by. But it's honestly almost enough just to kind of actually bring it up and have it in there.
Mhm.
So um,
Um, Sprinks, you got something?
Um, well, can go to Count Vorp,
Volp,
Volp.
Volp, Volpe,
I just call him Ringmaster in my notes.
big nose.
Yeah, in my notes, I
Yeah.
have him as Honest John because I thought that's
That's just
the
what he is.
connection.
Yeah.
Especially since how he's introduced, he has a wolf head on his cane, and then
Mm,
he has a mute monkey friend, and I went, "Oh, that's Honest Johnny Gideon." And then I wrote that he has the red hair, a long nose, orange jacket with a fur collar to really give a wolf appearance. In the special scene behind the scenes that was shown, that wasn't for connection to a wolf, but to make him look more like the devil.
Wasn't
Uh,
Honest John a fox?
yeah, he was a fox.
I'm trying to think about. Yeah, I could
Because the
sort of see the
hair,
devil details.
the
Yeah,
hair wasn't supposed to be for like wolf ears; it's supposed to be for devil horns.
yeah, I can see it. It's there. There's definitely something there for that.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I'll take us to Pinocchio asking Cricket about who Carlo is. And Cricket has to sort of explain the concept of death. Um, and I think he does a decent job explaining it in a childlike way.
Yeah, I think he because it's simplified, so it's not like overly morbid or dark,
Yeah. I
but
mean,
it gets to
children,
the message.
yeah, children is asking another profound question, and he does a
Yeah,
good job of trying to describe it. It's one of the things I liked. Another thing I liked about the movie is because Cricket has a few more of those moments, or
mm.
when he has to explain what a burden is and stuff like that. Um,
Sometimes fathers say things that they think they mean in the moment, but they don't actually mean.
yeah.
Like when you slapped you, he didn't mean it.
He slapped you
Uh,
silly and beat the shit out of you. He didn't really mean to do that.
yeah. Uh, yeah, I took that in a direction, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. You got to follow
So
that. Come on.
I'll jump to something else unless you're still going later.
No, no,
Nope,
we're not going
nope. No,
down that road anymore.
I was just praising it.
All
I'm done.
right. I'll jump to the lying scene. Uh, I think they laid it a bit too thick. I know Pinocchio's dumb and everything, but he knows the more he lies, the larger the nose gets. I feel like he would have figured out sooner that his lying is very apparent. I
Mm.
don't know what you guys think
No,
about
it's
that.
You're
not.
saying when he's lying to Geppetto?
Yeah, he lied like 4 or 5 times in a row.
I think that was child
That's more
emotions
stubborn. Yeah, it
more
was like
I,
just stubborn.
taken
Yeah.
over more than actual thought.
this is the first time his nose grows, right? When he lies.
Yeah,
No, this is the second time
it was.
Okay,
because
when was the first time?
I believe it was when he was in the church.
Oh
Because he
yeah,
said,
you're
"I'm a
right.
real boy of flesh and
Oh,
bone."
Oh yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. So he should be more
that's
than
right.
well aware that it grows. So
Uh,
then, yeah,
Well,
it
and Geppetto
definitely
told
has
him
to
the
be.
story before as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
To
So yeah, he
to
should be
capture
more than well
more of
aware.
the childlike thing in the behind the scenes, they stated that Pinocchio went with the 2-second change of emotions, very mood swings of, crying 1 minute to being really happy the second. So I think that instance with him and Geppetto just trying to love his papa here is just kind of blinding him to just state his emotions, trying to be more loved and accepted than to give a pause and thought of like he can see my nose growing and maybe
Oh
I
no,
should
no,
change up
no.
his.
I
I'm
understand
not
the
gonna.
intention. I
Yeah.
think it was too thick. I think they
too
did too
thick.
much with it.
Um, I'm kind of. this is what I'm 50-50 on because I get the whole child acting out thing. Children will just do that when they're very frustrated because children don't know how to express their emotions properly. It's one of the things you have to teach them. Um, so it's so I'm on the offensive where it's like I can totally believe the that Pinocchio can do this. On the other hand, though, I understand where you are coming from because it does come across as a little too much. Um, and it might not necessarily be the scene; it might just be the children laughing at him that added it a little too much. Because like
Yeah.
it's, I like the intention, but there's just something off about it, and I don't know if it is because it's too much or if it's just something else that happens in the scene that I just haven't put my finger on about it.
All right.
Yeah. It yeah. I don't know. It's a hard one because I'm like I feel like there is just some there seems like just kind of a kid being stubborn. Like they're caught in a lie. They know they're caught in a lie, but like they just are stubborn and they just keep going with it. Seems somewhat believable to me personally, but I can understand the opposite side as well. Of it seems a little bit unrealistic
And
because it would be obvious.
I don't know if it helps at all, but the story we know the story of the nose growing was told to Carlo through the story book that Geppetto read to him at night. But Pinocchio has no knowledge of that story of the nose grow.
Who knows,
Yeah,
bro?
No,
he
Geppetto says
did.
so after the church
Yeah.
because it grows in the church. So Geppetto had to explain to him. So he didn't hear the story, but he knows that's the mechanic.
Okay.
Um, I like Pinocchio's questions about cricket about school. and I also felt really, really bad for Cricket here because he gets just ignored again and is getting attacked by Spazzatura the monkey. Um, I think it's a good scene. I like that the monkey is actually making efforts to try and snatch up the cricket and shut him up because he realizes that the cricket's the only thing in their way.
Mm.
Um, but I also just wrote down another instance, just poor cricket, because man,
Yeah.
he gets beat the fuck out of this movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he dies a lot in
Oh,
this.
even after he assists Geppetto on where Pinocchio's going later, Geppetto still steps on him.
Steps on him.
Yep.
Oh, it's a waking
Pain.
nightmare.
I have
Um,
in my notes a point that I thought it was clever. It didn't exactly pay off, but when Geppetto is in the church painting and
Hmm.
the the father figure walks in, um, they do their nice little cool friendly handshake to each other, and Geppetto drops his paintbrush, leaving red paint, which was being used as blood, onto the shoes of him.
Hmm.
yes, which is I think that symbolism is much more apparent later on when the war game
Yeah.
starts.
So I
Um,
like a nice little foreshadow of that.
yes, it is good.
Foreshadow.
I appreciate that as well. Um,
Especially when he has the
and they
salute.
and yeah,
Yeah, they're super cool friendship handshake.
the
Yeah.
hail, yes. um,
Pinocchio's
Crimson,
death.
yeah, Crimson, you go.
Uh,
Yeah, he
how
got it.
does a puppet die?
Like anyone
Uh,
else.
He got
Apparently,
hit by a car, yeah.
yeah, he was still intact though. The
His
the
brain.
rules of Pinocchio's life I don't follow in this because uh, he gets run over, but he
Mhm.
still has his head. He's got his body still. He had some broken limbs from what we could tell.
I think.
Um,
I'll let you finish. Actually, go ahead. Go ahead.
um, and he got shot, presumably in the head. That would be my guess. I don't know. um, but he got shot, died. I just don't know how the mechanic works because it seems like he comes back with a new body, uh, and I don't know why.
Except for
So,
the third
I don't know
time.
why.
Yeah,
so
except for the third time.
the things from what I don't know what happened to the bullet hole issue, but
Yeah, I
from
thought
him
that yeah.
getting hit by the car, I just assumed it was his nose that was cut off until they explicitly said that he was dead. I'm like, okay.
Same.
Um, I I'm tempted to agree. The only pattern or through line that I can find in as to where they end Pinocchio's life is he still can die to human things. Like the human what would normally kill a human also ends one of Pinocchio's lives.
So the first one with the car is blunt death.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
he
So,
got hit by a car, then he gets shot by a bullet and
but
then,
there's no bullet
exploded.
damage. There's no bullet
Yeah.
wound or anything shown. And even if it was, through the little Sebastian hole in his chest, there's
There would
no
still be another hole on the other
detail on the
side.
back or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not explaining that away because I can't explain that away. I think I'm
No.
talking about more about the mechanics of his life system or his immortality, which is, as far as I understand it, he could still die in a how humans normally would die, except for aging or whatever. Um, and then he will eventually come back to life. And I don't understand the post damage mechanic because I think that's inconsistent. But
Yeah.
that's what I took away is understanding how his deaths work, quote unquote, is that
I
he could
Well,
think
still die, but
I think it actually would have been better if after the dogfish he came back still full body. Because after the dogfish, it certainly cost him a lot. It cost him an arm and a leg, to come back.
it,
Ba-boom.
it would be more consistent. Like if he came back full bodied, it would
Yeah,
have been just been in line with everything else. But the
he
fact that he
ended up
doesn't is
drowning. The
yeah,
wooden puppet drowned.
I
that's
He
don't
has no
understand either.
lungs.
that's
I
different.
know.
He's
That part's different to me
how?
because he came back mortal at that point.
That doesn't matter. He's still a wooden boy.
Wooden you
Mortal.
almost
He's
said wooden
still the
toy.
same object.
Yeah, like I said, this lends to the mechanic of him coming back. He could still die in a human way, which is why he drowning makes sense in that mechanic, and that's the only through line I have of how this works. Because that's the only thing that's consistent is he can still die the way humans can die, and that's it. I don't know anything else beyond that.
Well, when he gets blown up out of the compound and freaking jumps down rocks and lands and survives, that would have killed a human
Oh
easy.
yeah, I wrote that down. That breaks this established rule that they've made. I
So
fully acknowledge there's inconsistencies with what they have told what I understand to be the rule, but I it's the only one that can make sense through most of their through lines of their deaths. That's the only one it's the only thing I can understand it as.
That's a
So
long
Pinocchio
pause that's getting
dies.
cut.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Pinocchio dies.
Yeah, Pinocchio dies for the first time.
I actually kind of like the death song, with the dead rabbits. Um, I know.
I like the Dead Rabbits.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny. It's like you're hearing things, and then he just bursts out of his coffin,
I
and then
think
we get our first taste of the afterlife.
I think this is kind of the part where they're playing like cards together that I wrote down. Something phenomenal this movie does that I think a very rare amount of movies do is dry humor that's dark.
Yeah,
And
I
to
would
me,
agree
this
with
movie
that.
did it very well. It's not in your face a joke. It's very like through the lines of what's being said, which makes it dry humor, but it's in a dark tone.
Hmm.
And it's also
sure.
not off-putting to the movie to me. It's fitting with the whole element that everything's being shown in.
Yeah.
Um,
Writer, I'd
y'all.
like to get your thoughts on the hourglass rule. So
Uh,
it doesn't really add up to me because it
the
implies
the hour
Pinocchio is not the first thing that this has happened to.
uh the hourglass rule thing, I didn't apply that logic at all. The hourglass rule to me is, I think, lip service to a better idea that wasn't really in the movie. The idea that he would have to wait there longer each time, it's not really a mechanic they play around with. Because the moment that it would be an issue, they just break the rules and he becomes mortal. Um, my understanding of how it's implied to be, or what I thought they were going to do, is like at the end when Sebastian's dead or whatever, Pinocchio kind of walks through, sits down, and he just tells Death, a bunch of the stories that's going on while they're waiting for the hourglass to go down, that sort of thing. So I assumed that's what they were going to do with that, but the problem is they didn't do that. So as far as I understand the rule, that's how it was supposed to work, or the idea that just he just sits around and waits.
Uh, but my question regarding the rule is why it exists in the first place.
I have no
The
idea.
fact that she
They
states
don't. They
that
don't.
there's a rule for this situation of an immortal figure, I guess, implies that there's been others or there are others for there to be a rule in the first place.
Well, there's other individuals like her, right, who are immortal.
Well, Life is her sister, but we
And then
don't
she's
know
death.
anything
The, the,
else
the
connected in their
comments
family.
the comments that the only hint that we have that were other people's, because I actually kind of agree with you, Crimson. The reason that it exists is because evidently his sister has done this before, because she kind of jokingly accuses her of being sentimental. So it implies that she has done this before. This idea of giving someone immortality. Um, but as for why the rule exists in the movie, I do not know, other than to facilitate the concept of giving up immortality later on,
Yeah.
if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, I see it for the tool it is. As you said, it's just the fact that the rule exists just seems, um, I guess, not convenient.
It's
I
a
don't know.
world building thing. I just kind of I took it in stride. I'm like, okay, they can do this. They just did it with Pinocchio. I just don't know how much they have done it before.
I think the ruling also kind of goes to a consequence onto the action of the sister because it's not just like Death has no part in it because it's essentially cheating Death in a way. So Death still needs to get some kind of favor of side out of this situation that's happening, which is why the rules put into place. I don't think it's the same for
You
everyone
mean
doing it with the
so you
hourglass
imply
thing.
that like so I guess your takeaway is that death has like the time tax or whatever. The hourglass is like you're gonna be here longer each time you die. You think that's just her
Death needs
not
something out of
necessarily
it.
getting back? Yeah. Okay. That's fair.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's a yeah, I don't know.
It doesn't seem
I
death has
think
the power to just cancel what life did.
Yeah. Do
no,
you
she can't. But all she can do is just put a tax on whatever the time he has.
Yeah.
Essentially, that's life is just time.
And what death
Yeah.
death gives is the only person who can like stop what life did. I mean, death can't cancel it. The only person who can is Pinocchio himself or whoever is gifted with life from life herself or itself, I guess, from the
Yeah.
sprite. That's why
I
death can't break
guess
the hourglass.
da, 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 da. Do you have more to add on your question, Crimson? Like, can you or do you have any more thoughts to add about it? Because I hope I answered your question, but I'm not sure.
Um, no, I still just see it like the existence of it as an issue, and I guess I haven't been swayed from that.
Okay,
Wait,
that's
do
fair.
you think you could ever?
Well, I mean,
I'm just curious if it's one of those things where like
Well, there's a recap.
you
So,
inherently understand the consequences of it, and
yeah,
therefore it
I
can't
think
exist.
And I've
I
been
think
swayed on stuff all the time.
I'm not saying you haven't. I'm
This
just
isn't
saying if
one.
it.
I mean, I guess I guess all my closing thoughts on it is I don't think it is was utilized well enough to be a mechanic in the film.
I would have wanted like
So
I it
you know,
works. Sorry, you go. I'll let you go.
so like in a way, I agree with you, Crimson. That like I don't think there's enough done with it to justify its place in the movie, but I understand why it's there as a tool. So yeah, that's pretty much my closing thoughts on that.
Yeah, to piggyback off what you're saying about like the punishment of the time, all we get is like maybe an hour or something or less. It'd be cool if like a week went by or some a drastic amount of time at
Yeah,
like the last one or something
That was
before
my
he breaks the hourglass,
that's what
I
I was gonna say. Yeah.
because then
I
it gives
would
impact to time.
I would agree. That's kind of my thing. Is like it doesn't. There's not enough done with it to imply the importance of it to the story. It's not justified. So I would agree. And Springs, do you have any closing thoughts on that?
um, all I can think of is if they made the movie longer, they could focus more on the connection of life and death and their history of the world and everything, but they didn't. So I think they the story isn't about the characters of life and death. They're just in there to show the tailoring of the story of Pinocchio. And to me, I think this movie is about Geppetto being with the whole beginning of Carlo. If the
Yeah,
beginning of
it's
the
Geppetto's
movie
movie. I'd agree with
if
that.
the beginning of the movie didn't have the whole story of Carlo and like we just kind of knew in the background that Geppetto had lost a son, but the whole beginning act or scene focused on life and what she did to these inanimate objects or things and then how death would affect them and death would be like angry at her sister but they can't connect and like each one gets a different thing and then says like if the soul chooses they can end it and that would be like breaking hourglass of whatever ruling that individual had. I think that would help with what is being discussed now, but the connection and emotional payoff of that I don't think would have helped unless the story focused more on those two characters rather than Geppetto.
Well, I don't think it needs a whole new scene like that. Like when we first get introduced to death, and she brings up, "Well, we have rules." It could easily be written in like, "My sister and I agreed with her other past toys that this is the rule," and it would be better written than that, obviously. But that could be a quick little thing in the introduction to explain why there's a rule and how the rules work.
Do you think that would set a curiosity to Pinocchio to go try to look for these other toys?
I don't think
Maybe
Pinocchio would
eventually.
care about it. I mean, it would
Not
leave a
I don't
question
know.
in the back of the
Yeah.
audience. Like,
maybe
oh, there's
eventually it
others,
might,
but
like after the film, but he
eh,
has much more relevant things he's worried about. So no, I don't.
maybe after everyone dies at the end,
Yeah, I don't
that
know if
that's his
opening up
next
that
adventure.
possibility of saying more on would be a door open that they didn't want to touch on. If that would just open too many questions.
I
I
I'm of
don't think
the
so. It just ties a world building bow.
it the whole clocks thing, it works because of like one of the last scenes in the thing, and it's kind of just set up for that purpose. That's all I'm gonna say for it is why it exists. Otherwise, it wouldn't
Yeah,
exist.
obviously that's
Yeah,
why it exists.
Yeah.
but
But
my
the fact
my
that it
I
exists is now is something we have to apply to how the rest of the world
no. Let me
works.
show you. I was about to agree with you, and you just wrecked it. So now I'm not going to agree with you. No, I'm kidding. I would want it to have a little bit more drastic real world consequences of like or not real, like the not
In the
the
universe.
afterlife, the living world. That like it seems like it's only like a minute, but then in real life it's been like a whole day, or 5 minutes it's been a week or something, and have a little bit more time. Unfortunately, I think that if they did that, they would have to calculate out how much actual time, and then that's a whole
Yeah.
thing. But
Yeah, like I said, it's one of the it's one of the things that like I said, it goes back to the whole like why did they like the crucifix but not me? It's definitely paying lip service to a very, very potentially deep idea that they don't really play around with. So if this for any reason gets a sequel, I would want them to play around with the mechanic now that we know that he still has it. But um it's one of those things where we don't get much on it, but I do
yeah.
appreciate the concept of what they want to do with
Oh
this.
yeah, I like the
So,
idea. I
all right.
would have liked a
That
little bit
was
more work
bit
out
of
I
a
don't think this
long
is getting a
tangent.
sequel.
Yeah, I don't think it
of
is
it.
either.
Pinocchio
Um,
2: The
Has there
Quest
ever
for
been
More
a Pinocchio
Money.
sequel?
The
yeah.
resurrection of
Yeah,
Geppetto.
there was that live action Pinocchio from the '90s. I think had a sequel.
No, wow.
Yeah.
That's true. And so I think the Dalmatians movie also got a sequel too, the
Oh
live
yeah.
action one.
Oh, the live
Um,
action one?
You said
yeah, the
Yeah,
Dalmatians?
old
it did.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, 102.
Um,
Yeah.
102 Dalmatians. Whoa, we
uh,
could handle it. I went to 101, 102. No way, can't do it. No way. Um,
so okay, Sprinks, why don't you take it away for one if you got
Uh,
one?
the act when they leave the circus. Um, well, I thought the Count was more as a fox than a devil, but the whole signature signing and contracts, I guess, gives more of that devil feel to it.
Yeah, the demons like contracts, that sort of
Yeah,
thing. I could agree with that. It's a nice little touch, I suppose.
yeah, the handshakes to cement things.
I think the only thing important to note after Pinocchio comes back to life is that the Count is gonna exorbitate Geppetto for money, and then
Oh, even as a dead body.
oh, even as a dead body, yes. And then also, Mr. Fascisto once Pinocchio's back to life, he wants him for the army. Podesta.
Yeah, the Count
good,
really kind of
strong Italian pine.
Count really saw him as like for a reference for you SpongeBob fans, a Flying Dutchman situation.
True.
uh, Sinister, do you got anything for this act?
For the third act or the like, or we're
Second.
still on the second.
We're still in second.
Um, I, it's interesting how uh, I'm sure this is just because it's 19 freaking 30s Italy and Geppetto's a wood carver, not. But I don't think the guy at the ringmaster has any actual grounds that he could actually get like 10 million, whatever,
Some arbitrary amount.
yeah, some
Yeah.
arbitrary amount of money. Especially because he's not really like swimming in it, as they say, at the
Interesting
moment.
question. Do you think? Well, actually, I was gonna say Pinocchio wasn't alive at the moment at the time, so
Hmm.
I was gonna say, did you think he did that to intimidate Pinocchio into coming back partially?
Yeah, there's a whole yeah, there's a vindictive kind of psychology to it. I'm sure. Um, it's because it's like an empty threat, but under the right circumstances, you can if you get like the person or whatever,
Hmm.
it's it can work. Um, and unfortunately it does, and then he has to go with the circus.
Yeah. Uh, I think it's something that's very small, but I like the fact that he went from giant contracts in order to rope Pinocchio in, and then he went to just drawing lines through the dirt on the money,
Yeah.
which
Oh
is a
yeah.
very, very
Well,
clear distinction
I
of what he
figure
actually
I
intends to
figure the
do.
contract that's already signed and the lawn one pretty much already covers what the handshake one is.
Well, yeah. He's not. There's no way it's honest. I mean,
Well, the
he's gonna get
handshake
the
one is
line.
just
No,
word
no,
of
no.
mouth, where the other one's actually showing proof of what was written.
Yes. But I was saying in both situations, I don't think it was honest, so it didn't matter. He could just say whatever he wanted. Obviously.
Which is a nice tie-in, how the Count is, this devilish character with lies and deceit, and he already starts off with a big nose.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep, I like that note as well.
I
Uh,
like that nose.
I like the note, I suppose, as well.
Well, I like the nose.
That's fair.
Since we talked about death, Crimson, I'm gonna bring up what was stated in the behind the scenes, which
Mm.
I didn't catch, but the detailing on Death's tail to go to the
Oh, yeah.
snakes is the same pattern as a pine cone.
That's cool, and I'm okay with that. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
They turn the snake scales into pinecone scales.
What a
As death
what a
goes to life.
charming coincidence.
Um,
All right, I guess my last thing for this act.
Go
yeah,
on then.
Um, I liked his Pinocchio's talk, bringing up the burden topic with Sebastian.
yes.
How Geppetto's nose didn't grow. I liked it. It's a good childish point of view. He doesn't know that humans' noses don't grow like his when
His
lying,
nose
and
didn't grow.
I think it was good.
His nose didn't grow, so he meant it.
Yeah,
Um,
it was wholesome.
One last thing that I liked, and unless you've read the original Adventures of Pinocchio, where he's a little shit and he's not at all likable. Um, I think they made a sly reference to it in that, Sebastian is held under the glass with a hammer, and then when he gets out, the hammer almost squashes him. Well, it does squash him, but
Mhm.
it lands on him. Uh,
It gave me
um,
a like a Toy Story 1 kind of thing with a toolbox.
yeah, yeah, the toolbox, but it's a reference to the story because in the story, the original story by Carlo Coblini, yeah, uh, Carlo Collodi. I don't know, probably mispronouncing the last. In the story, Pinocchio kills the cricket with a hammer.
Oh,
Yeah,
huh, didn't know that.
yeah,
That's
there you
a
go.
good tie-in.
Yeah, I don't know. That's probably what he's going. Because there's a bunch
I
of
would
other,
imagine.
yeah, bunch of other allusions throughout this movie that are to the story and stuff, but 100% sure.
Is
Didn't hear it from Guillermo del Toro myself, so I don't know.
well,
I'm reading into it.
there anything else to go over in Act 1 or Act 2? Sorry, we're in Act 2.
Um, I I guess we didn't really talk about
Yeah,
the
we haven't
King
talked
of
about it.
Puppets,
Yes, King
uh,
of Puppets.
Pinocchio's first performance stuff
Oh,
is
Oh, I guess that's a good
that's
thought. Do you think
mm,
he
bubblegum pop.
purposely? Do you think he was purposely fooling to play dead as a puppet, or do you think that was intentional for the stage that the Count told him to do?
oh, I'm pretty sure
Uh,
that was told
Okay, because the Count didn't
when he
get
was just
angry.
dangling there during the performance.
Yeah, they cut the strings.
I I agree with whatever Crimson says.
Oh wow,
Well, thank
No,
you
no,
very
Crimson,
much.
say whatever you
no,
want
no,
right now.
no. I agree
I
with it.
hate everybody.
Wow,
I
sinister!
I
Can't believe
I
you.
Sister, how dare you agree with me?
I disagree.
Um, yeah, the first performance is It is decent,
I
I
like the
guess.
song. Yeah, I like the song. I think my favorite
Eh,
performances in this are from Pinocchio. Yeah, there's only a few I know in the whole thing, but I like the Pinocchio ones probably the most.
Well, what's the
I
other one? One
guess
from Geppetto and one from Sebastian?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I was like, it's kind of unfair, but
uh, how many songs did you guys like in this?
uh, I liked I liked Pinocchio's first one when he comes to life. I thought that one was genuinely like a good little. Uh, I like the I like the second Mussolini one, because it was really childish.
Mhm.
And I like the bubblegum, the re-rendition of My Son or whatever that Geppetto sings in the beginning.
I like them
I
all.
think that's what it's yeah, I mean, they're all good, but, those are probably the ones that stand out to me.
Sprinks, that is such a shocking answer.
Yeah, I can't believe you would say
There
that.
didn't
So out of
seem to be
character.
any boring one or, standalone one that seemed, just off
They
compared to the
all
rest. They all had that kind of fitting style. And I think a reason for it, as another thing in the behind the scenes that Crimson and I know, all the instruments were wooden instruments
yeah.
for every musical piece of
I
song and
know
background.
I know a lot of people well, I don't know a lot of people, but I know some people were disappointed because I think when this was originally, being, talked about, like, 2012 to, like, 2013 or something, when this was getting some footing.
Mhm.
Nick Cave was originally gonna be doing, the music for it, and, obviously in this version, it's not, I believe it's his name is, Alexandre Desplat.
Oh,
A
Splat.
I don't think I'm
Desplat,
familiar with that composer's work.
he did oh, I didn't know this. He did the, musical scores for Grand Budapest Hotel and
Oh,
The Shape of Water.
well, Shape of Water, another Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah. And he has received 9 additional Academy Award nominations.
Wow.
He
There
did
was
not
only
he
one song I liked.
which one was it? Was
I'm
it the
not
poop one?
surprised.
The Farewell Papa one.
That's a good one.
A good one.
Um,
Yeah.
It's a good ballad.
and when I say good, okay. The rest I didn't care.
Yeah, yeah, if Crimson says good anything,
Well,
it
Crimson
really
already
means
said he
okay.
skipped the last one.
Yeah, well, the movie was over. Go home.
It was over. But that's all I got for the act.
Same goes for me.
All right. Are
yeah,
we going
same.
to Act 3 then?
Act 3. Act Trace.
Yes.
Yes.
Alrighty. So we got the Farewell Papa song to the fascist
Farewell,
execution
my
by
papa.
our Lord and Savior Mussolini.
So Pinocchio becomes a Hydra soldier.
Yes, to a degree. Um,
Not a Hydra soldier. Propaganda.
um,
Uh,
Buy your bonds today.
I definitely did get Captain America 1
Yeah,
vibes. I'm gonna be honest.
that's what I mean, yeah.
Kill Pinocchio
the
once, his
American
time in death is
way.
twice as long.
Um,
Every bond you buy is a bullet in your best man's gun.
That's it. You got it.
that's exactly it.
Oh my god, he actually got
Uh,
a quote right. My Jesus.
And then Captain
um,
America did Star-Lord's mom or something.
He
I
That's
did what
different.
now?
That's different.
What?
That's a different.
I think the only thing that we might need to talk about that's kind of like in I don't know exactly when this starts. I don't really remember when this is, but Geppetto and Cricket setting off on the journey with the song starting.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I really
he's
like Cricket just
hitchhiking.
laying into Geppetto.
You had a
Something
boy.
something
And
that
you called it a burden. A
oh yeah.
burden.
Oh, you
Uh,
liked that?
he liked him laying into him. Yeah,
Yeah, it was
deserved
good.
it.
Fucking deserved it. Yeah.
Oh God. Hey,
Oh god, I
Oh,
hated
we have a
it.
Oh,
rebuttal?
please go
Rebuttal?
on.
that was my least favorite part of this movie.
What, him
Oh,
It,
taking the moral high ground?
well, no, it felt unjustified with how hard he was going at him. I didn't
No,
feel
him.
like
Explain. Go on.
it's been what 1 or 2 days with Pinocchio with Geppetto, day and a half, and Sebastian
Oh,
expects him to take him on as a son now, and
Who
berates
made
oh.
him
him?
like it's his own and everything.
Okay.
It's
No.
I think
That
it
I
was
agree with.
unwarranted.
That I agree with. Yeah.
It's, it's
The issues that you took with the scene are the same issues I have. We're fine. Moving on.
you just liked the acting, I guess, the voice acting for it, adding to the
Um,
scene.
I liked the intention of the scene, and I do like the voice acting. I know what they're trying to do. I agree. It's been like 2 days. I actually wrote this down. I'm like, I don't know how much time has passed, and it's not enough for this. So, but it would be a very powerful scene. I think it is a very powerful scene in isolation. But the problem is, story doesn't support that. So,
Pinocchio was your son, Geppetto. He loved you.
You were
He
the
did.
chosen one. Oh wait,
Oh wait, wrong movie. Oh,
he even has the high ground. You see, he's on a step higher above Geppetto. Even other universes, Ewan McGregor still holds the high ground.
yeah.
A
He's
little
Ian
nitpick I
McGregor.
have, which
Like, oh,
it's different
reverse
in
Sprinks nitpick.
kind of in this one than compared to First Avenger, where
Go on.
Geppetto has a flyer that shows of all where the carnival's going
Yeah.
of
Like the
each
finale.
towns. Yeah, he doesn't in First Soldier. They don't. Or First Avenger. It just is a map of like all the sections, and then Red Skull, drives up, and they're already destroyed by Captain America. In this one,
yeah.
Okay.
in this, sorry, did that make sense?
No.
I get
I
what you're
was
going.
lost. Sorry, I was lost because I thought you were comparing the propaganda scene in Captain America to the propaganda scene in this
No,
one.
no. I'm comparing when Captain America takes down each Hydra station, and Red Skull drives
Yeah.
up to them, and they're already destroyed. To me, it was like Geppetto going to each place the carnival was, and they're already gone. With the flyer in hand, why didn't Geppetto just go straight to the last location to
Yeah,
meet
I
when
wrote
they'll
that
get
down
there,
too.
rather
I
than
wrote that
going
down
to each
too.
town being slow?
Did the flyer show the entire plan? Or, I didn't
It
look.
I
didn't
thought it
show a
just showed the
map.
last
It
one.
showed the
The
names of the
flyer
cities, right?
the main one that we see is the one where it shows where the circus is going to conclude. So he
Yeah.
knows where it's going to end. But we get the
I think he just
impression he's
happens
just
to.
following the circus.
Yeah, I think he just happens to get there or get to those places after it's already done, just by nature of the. It's probably not a. It's probably a linear. They're probably both in like the same route, essentially. I mean, by
Yeah, it
travel.
shows Geppetto
Well,
Yeah.
following
no,
them rather than
if it
just
was the
going
same
straight
route,
there.
the circus would have been eaten by a fucking giant dogfish. So
Well, no, I mean, like up to that point, I think because it's 1930s Italy, so probably traveling. Everybody goes in the exact same route if they're going to this someplace.
There's only one road, all of Italy.
see, that's true for the Soviet nations, but I don't know about Italy. I'm running it through my head right now. The pre-war maps. Uh,
Just cut through the vineyards. I'll make it.
Italy does have a lot of mountains. Um,
It does.
They got a volcano. Thank you,
They're
journey to
famous for their
center of the earth.
mountains.
I
You're
do think
welcome,
I
King.
one thing I do think is interesting is now that we're in the interwar period, I like that in the background when we see like bombings and stuff, they're not biplanes anymore, kind of indicating that we're getting closer and closer to the big, you know, uh,
The
Hootspot.
juicy stuff.
world, yeah, the juicy World War stuff.
This forest is juicy.
Okay, don't stop saying that word.
Juicy?
What?
Moist. Wetness.
I think that word in World War II should not go hand in hand.
See, you made it worse.
God,
You made that
I'm not
connection,
saying the
but
word.
you know what you said. You know what you were
I know
inferring
what I'm
there.
hearing.
You know what you're interpreting.
So something I think that didn't look
Yeah,
right. So when Geppetto finds Sebastian crushed by the hammer, picks him up, and you see him in his hand, that didn't look right. Was it just me?
That didn't look right.
It
May just
looked
be
like
you.
Sebastian was like added like CG added to the hand.
Oh, come on now.
Do you
I mean,
think
everything else with CG looked good, but that looked
do you
off.
think it's because
I didn't see.
with what we
so.
know of Crimson that those Geppetto hands were probably huge to match the size?
Those Geppetto hands.
Do you think it's like
Or
they
we
didn't
never
do
see
as
that in the behind the. We never see that in the behind the scenes.
No, but we know
the
it was
hand.
the scaling of Sebastian. So if Sebastian was being animated for like facial and everything, he'd have to be the size to match giant hands compared to, normal sized hands with a tiny Sebastian. Do you
I mean, I
recall
get what
how
you're saying.
animated Sebastian
I
was?
understand what you're saying.
I get what you're saying, but looking at it, I saw this before, and having
this
seen
before and I
the
saw this
making
after.
of, it doesn't look like they're two actual objects interacting. I think they filmed a hand. I don't know what size that hand would be.
Do you think the
Then
hands
they
were like a
filmed the
still?
cricket, and then they put
That's
it together. I
that's
think
a
that's what they
grievous
did.
accusation, Crimson.
I did not notice that. Or if said to be, didn't stand out to me.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'm looking at it right now. I mean, it looks.
I didn't notice it either. So
I mean, I'm looking at it right now. It looks slightly.
they cut footage on top of footage. I would guess.
I don't know.
Could
I can't.
be.
Could be.
Yeah.
Well, we never know.
Let's
I don't know. He's
see.
just. I don't know. It could go either way. I don't have.
That's fair. We see a bird that blew up a sea mine, so that we know how the sea mines work.
I love that
What?
gag.
It was I smirked, but it's still horrified.
I mean, it's horrifying, but I could see the payoff, and I was not
It
disappointed.
reminded
Don't you
me
get
of
the Hot Fuzz reference? Because there
No.
was a sea mine in Hot Fuzz, and it had the voice of Geppetto in Hot Fuzz
of David
also be in
Bradley.
this.
Just
So,
the voice, not the actual actor. Just the
Oh,
voice.
okay. So
boom,
Crimson saw
reference.
that reference. I saw the reference to Finding Nemo when all the mines are going off underneath, and then the one bubble comes up for the seagull.
Fine. Yeah,
Mine.
there can be two. Two things can be real.
I mean, mine isn't a real reference, so.
Yours is kind of a real reference. Yours
I will.
exists, and his exists too.
It's just because of stop motion animation and an ocean scene that any time they were kind of in the ocean, not necessarily in the dogfish, but around the water, it reminded me of James and the Giant Peach.
Yeah,
Gave off that
that's
feel a
understandable.
lot.
I love James and the Giant Peach.
It's an interesting movie, James and the Giant Peach. I'll give it that.
Blocked it out of my mind. Creeped me out as a kid.
I'm not afraid of you.
Giant cloud rhino. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see.
And the rhino will come and get you.
I actually was surprised when we started because I didn't know that we were gonna get like the interwar period when I saw this. So when I was seeing the Benito Mussolini posters in the background, I was actually like, "Huh, is this like?" I was actually like surprised that they were willing to like I guess go there. So, and then even more so when I found that he was gonna actually come and watch their final circus performance.
He's a big fan.
Carnival.
Apparently, he likes.
He's
I
a
like puppets.
he's a small fan.
That's accurate.
When I believe it's still this act when Geppetto gets to the boat to ask for passage, I noticed
Yeah.
it here. What is the connection to so many dogs? Because I picked it up that there's a lot of dogs just in the background, like stray dogs. And I don't know if that was a reason for anything.
Lots of those in Italy.
Actually, this is a little known fact. In the interwar period in Italy, packs of wild dogs actually ran the streets. It was quite. They were quite vicious. I mean, we're very overbearing masters.
I apologize that I have to ask: is this a real fact or is this a crimson?
Sense the
I think like
sarcasm.
75% may be accurate. I don't know.
Okay.
45 to 75% accurate maybe. I do know there was a period where there were like actually like I'm pretty sure there were
I wouldn't
packs
be
of wild
surprised.
dogs.
I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out to be true, but I'm gonna be honest. I just genuinely don't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't
I just
know.
noticed ever since I can't remember the first dog. I think there was
When
a dog.
Pinocchio's running into town,
Well, yeah, I think
Yeah,
there was a
he points
dog
out
when
a dog.
Carlo was going to the church, and it was a normal
Normally, yeah,
dog. And then there was when the poster comes down and covers in the town square. There's two dogs in like an alley with Pinocchio going to the church, and then there's a dog on the dock um, towards Geppetto. So there's just like a lot of stray dogs, and I didn't know if it was something, or maybe not stray. Maybe they're like belong to someone, but still.
It could just be much.
uh,
It could just be a much more literal thematic reference too, like the idea that Pinocchio right now is a stray and he's just trying to get his son back.
Maybe.
apparently they just have free ranging dogs in Italy.
I told you.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I guess. um. Oh. See, I've said his name like 5 times now, but I forgot his name. The name of the monkey. The
Pinocchio.
I just call him
Spazzatura.
Monkey.
Spazzatura. Spazzatura. I kind of like that Spazzatura is getting jealous of Pinocchio, so he's actually telling him the truth through the other puppets.
Yeah, trying to get him to leave. Yeah.
That's
So now he can
something.
talk.
That's something that can be seen either one of two
You can
ways.
talk.
I
Sorry.
saw the other puppets talking of Spazzatura actually speaking, rather than just voices in Pinocchio's head hearing.
Yes, that's what I assumed it was as well. I was confused at first until I saw Spazzatura like actually controlling the puppets, and I'm like, huh,
I saw
all
the
right, guess
controlling
he
the
can
puppets,
talk.
but Spazzatura never talks outside of the puppets, but just has like facial expressions.
Hmm.
So it's
I mean,
an emotional connection to the
yeah.
puppets to Pinocchio, which is why I think Spazzatura actually speaks, even though it doesn't talk to the count or stand up or say anything else throughout the movie. So
Yeah,
Huh?
I viewed it the same way, even though I find it as an issue since he doesn't talk anywhere else, and because we have a talking cricket, so why can't monkeys talk? But
Well, he
we never
does.
really get to see outside of
He needs a
this.
conduit.
Like I said, it's one of those things where it's playing with the idea of a deeper character, like the idea that he doesn't talk because maybe he's not in a great position. He's pretty much being abused by the ringmaster. So I think there's definitely a facet of character that could be developed into why he doesn't talk much and why he uses the puppets as an outlet. But again, he's just playing two big ideas here that's not really in the film.
I don't think it needs to be in the film
yeah,
No,
too
yeah,
much. It doesn't.
I don't think it does here either. I don't
Yeah.
think it does either. So it serves its purpose here, and then because I think the range of emotions that we see in the monkey later on in the movie during important scenes is enough to convey what the monkey's thinking.
so
Well,
Yeah.
in the
Pinocchio
begin,
likes hot chocolate, and then a
Yes.
puppets talk to him via
Hmm.
another person that may or
Oh,
not speak.
come on, man.
Interesting connection.
we see
What?
earlier that the monkey
You
tries
actually
to
lost
talk.
me.
Oh, did
You
I?
lost me. I'm just kidding.
Well,
Yes.
we'll have to get to the part where the circus is, Tokyo drifting on ice.
Tokyo drifting on ice.
Oh my gosh, how many
Got
more
it.
polar?
Okay. Got it.
How
Got it.
many
Got
more
it. Got
Polar
it.
Express
There
things?
we go.
I got it. Yes, the circus
Uh,
Tokyo drifting on ice is what clicked the dots. Got it.
Pinocchio, you're just like me. You're like a Scrooge.
Yeah. Yeah. Earlier when the monkey's going to Volv or whatever his name was,
Volp.
The
Volp.
Count.
Count
Yeah,
Christoph
Volp.
Waltz.
Yeah, Volp. He signs to like there's a living puppet, but if he can talk, why doesn't he just tell him there's a living puppet in town?
Because Volp
I
doesn't need to know that
agree.
Spenzatore speaks. I don't know.
I don't know. I like it.
I mean,
I like it.
Count Volp clearly understands Spazzatura. So I mean,
It's
like I said, it's a weird choice. Like I think we're just
I don't
like we're
like it.
hearing we're hearing the translation in Pinocchio's ears is all I understand it to be.
Yeah, because he can talk to puppets. He has that power.
Oh gosh. May- Maybe
Uh,
he speaks puppet. I'll
Uh,
accept it.
there we go.
I'll take that over the monkey talking since he only does this one.
Does it twice.
There we go.
There's
um,
2 talking to puppet scenes.
that's
Yes,
true.
there are. One of them is a little bit. I mean, the second one is more in depth than the other one. The other one's just kind of like, "Would you care for some more popcorn?" No.
Yeah, this is the act that I think is the thinnest for me. I have like one other thing to talk about, so I'll pass this along to the rest of you. Anything is
Observation I had while Geppetto was following the posters and stuff. At one moment it was raining and Cricket has an umbrella.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
oh, that's neat.
Where'd he get that?
Well, I mean, he has a big backpack. I'm sure it's in there.
Oh,
went to
American
Cricket
Horseback.
Avenue.
He didn't. No, the backpack is in Pinocchio's room.
Well, I don't know. He had an umbrella.
He had an umbrella. That's all I'm gonna say.
I
That's all
noticed it. I
found.
noted it. I wrote it down.
I'm
I
telling
noted
you, he
it.
went to Cricket Avenue. It's fine.
Cricket Avenue.
Cricket
Yeah, Cricket
Avenue.
Gap.
I'm gonna get you high.
I also don't have much to say.
DMC. I can't say much more.
Right.
I like that Mussolini is short.
Yeah,
Funny.
that
Funny little.
kind of leads into my bit. So, unless you have anything, Sprinks, I'll talk about that until the end, I suppose.
I have one
They
last thing.
Go
ahead.
on.
Oh, you want? Okay, I wasn't ready to go. There's. I don't know. Again, this is me reading into it. Guillermo del Toro didn't come up to me and say, "Sinister Boy, this is a reference to this thing." I don't know why I'm in French in that. It's not French. Was um there's a famous Buster Keaton gag where he takes like a really really absurdly long ladder and then walks across screen and then you just have like this long ladder going and with the really long car that Mussolini is riding in. I got a similar vibe. I don't know if that's actually a reference or if that's just
It's definitely
uh,
done for dramatic
I think it's
purposes and
just a
Yeah.
laughs.
visual gag.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's a visual
it's actually-
gag. I don't know if it's an actual reference to that specific thing because it's been done in other things as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spriggs.
I was going to touch on what amazing detail that even the hood ornament knows Geppetto's secret handshake.
Got it. Okay.
See, why are you covering it up so
Am I being
much?
too cryptic? I mean,
No, like
you keep calling it a handshake. That's why I'm
it's
confused.
not a handshake. It's a salute. Call it what it is.
sorry, a salute.
It's a handshake. Their hands don't touch each other.
Well, if one
It's a
person does it,
handshake,
if
Senator.
one person does
Stop
it, the other person's doing it. I mean, count.
It's confused me every time you
Sorry,
said
the
it. but,
count's
like,
done it to the children in the audience. I mean,
You know when I point at you, we're shaking hands as well, all right?
only if I point back.
Only if I point back that it's a handshake.
All
It's a
right.
mental
So
handshake.
the salute. Okay.
Well, okay, when they do that salute and they have Parkinson's, yes, that's a
Go,
handshake.
no, whoa.
Going
Oh,
off the
that's
rails there.
terribly awesome.
All right.
Terribly awesome.
Terrible
Yeah, we're-
joy.
Yeah. So I love the gag of Billy Mussolini being short because like with Napoleon, he has a Napoleon complex in real life history as well. So I like that they took it to the nth degree for a visual gag and amused me. And on a more poignant, anytime you make fun of fascist dictators, you'll also get some winning points for me somehow. But I like that the Podesta and his son are both there in attendance. I also like as well the routine that they put on. The only issue that I took away from the scene is man, they came up with that routine really fucking fast. Like
Oh, yeah,
the abridged routine.
Well, they had to make a poop costume.
Yeah, it's a very abridged routine. It was immaculately fast. So problem there. But I like that Benito Mussolini's just reaction is just very simple. He's like, I do not like these puppets.
I think
shoot
I'd
them
like
and burn
these.
it all down.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's a very good like uh gag take on history. Because I'm always for poking fun at history in its own way. And they do a pretty decent job while also not really destroying who he was as a person as well. Like they didn't
I don't
make
think
anything
it's
up.
you know
It
what?
just it just it just slid right in is what it did.
I don't know that much about Mussolini, but I think it's pretty on point. I can I can see him not taking a joke.
Yeah, I as well. I agree.
Yeah.
Um, and with the whole like for the fatherland stuff, this is part of when Italy's going under its military expansion. Because one of the there's a gag in World War II that Italy accomplishes nothing, and this is true, but that's because they also invaded everything at once. So I kind of like that they're sort of playing to the recruitment thing with Pinocchio's advertisements, and as well as um, just the general facade of him being it being a good thing, because the propaganda machines were heavy back in the day. And not that they aren't today, just they were back then too. So I think that this scene accomplishes a lot in terms of like historical references while also making it a funny gag that works mostly in character outside of the thing that I pointed out that was broken. Um, and that's it closes out with Pinocchio dying to a gunshot because
Mhm.
Mussolini orders his execution. Um,
That
I
was good.
suppose it.
Yeah.
Surprised
Yeah.
Volv or Volp survived.
Yes, I am absolutely surprised, and his ability to teleport as well is fucking astonishing.
Well, it doesn't
He's a
teleport.
cockroach.
He teleports.
You don't know how much
So
time has passed.
it's true. But
Twice as long as the last time.
oh, so 20 minutes. That's
Yes, exactly.
um, but it was nice. It was nice in the way that it was like a funny sort of like dark reference, I suppose.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
it's a very it's I think especially knowing what we know now about that period, it's a very hard thing I think to make light of just because of a lot of people died, a lot of people were subjugated that wrongly and
yeah,
but I think they do it pretty well where they just kind of make it about the guy and the guy is a fairly, silly
it's fo-
individual. Yeah.
it's focused on Pinocchio, which I think was the good thing, and then
Yeah.
him reacting the way he does is I think pretty in character.
Yes, yeah.
Um,
I think
so
any dictator would react that way to being made even the slightest bit funny fun of.
uh, and from with that,
I
are
don't
we cool
know.
to move on to
I don't know
act?
if I'm the only one who caught it, or I guess wrote it down as a reason. The proportions of the handgun, are those accurate, or is that just really to fit the puppet?
Um, oh, the
For the gunshot?
Yeah.
Um,
Not only that he holds, but also that the candle
the rifle that he
candlewick's
holds
dad
when he does the
picks up
routine.
later. No, the
the
handgun, the
the
pistol.
weapons are the
Oh,
weapons are fairly detailed, so I
yeah,
wouldn't be
It seemed the
surprised if
grip
they're
and the trigger were accurate size, but the barrel and everything was very small.
no, that was I think that was kind of like the Italian or the European standard was that sort of I think it's a
uh,
Walther. Is it a
Okay. I
Walther
just didn't
I
or
recognize
can't
it.
I can't speak to Italian weaponry. I know more about ships and airplanes. So
no?
than
Damn you!
sorry.
I
That
can't
one
help.
is yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
Uh
I know that's kind of a European style or uh, but I don't
it's no
know brand.
1911 or
No, it's
Found
not
on
any of
one
those Call of
range.
Duty ones.
it's not a Halo 1 pistol. Uh
No, it looks kind of like it, but don't be fooled. It's not.
it's an interesting take on a ray gun. So,
Yeah, it doesn't shoot lasers.
It's a
Why?
wonder weapon. Why did you say?
Wonderwaffle.
Yes.
I guess
Wunderwaffe.
last thing for the act I have, writer. I liked the ship captain jumping ship when the
That was funny.
monster was
That was
All
pulling
really
up.
right.
funny.
Goodbye.
And then poor Cricket starts to sing again and gets interrupted.
Yeah, good gag. Both both aspects of that was good. And the monkey getting beat up by Volp, I think
Oh, come
was pretty
on.
good. It was a good scene.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
really
very dark.
yeah,
It
I was
was.
like, "Oh, man, I feel like I walked in on something I shouldn't have."
Well, Volp was the one who immediately after to Pinocchio said, "I'm the master and you're the slave."
Yep.
Yeah.
So he probably
In case
treats other people
anyone
than just
was
Pinocchio in his circus as such.
Oh
yeah.
god, yeah. You don't wanna read any of those, circus memoirs. Jesus Christ, there's some dark twisted stuff in there.
A real
Something
P.T.
tells me
Barnum.
he's not a good guy.
Yeah.
um.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
Done.
I kind of glossed over that just because it was good and I didn't really have much to say other than that. Other than that. But yeah. Uh, Final thoughts, anybody, before we move to Act 4?
Let's take a look. See.
That's,
A son
sick.
knows that a father's okay.
I mean, it's not really touched on how the Candlewick and his father got Pinocchio. He just winds up in the back
I
of the.
well, I
They were in the audience, right?
yeah, they were in the audience,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Oh,
I
okay. So they
assume
just took his body.
yeah,
Yeah.
they knew that he was or, they know he's gonna come back, whereas, Volp, I guess well, Volp knows too, but,
Okay. Um, more of a geography question. They took a ship across the Gulf, as Geppetto said, to get across the Gulf. Where are they?
That's like a geography.
Are they still
Uh,
in
yeah, I don't
Italy?
I
I don't.
they're
yes,
still they're still in Italy. I presume it was just a large river that they tried to get across. Just
river.
thinking in my head where the Gulf might be. I
Okay.
don't know.
And that definitely looked like an ocean.
I was just curious
There's a motion in the ocean.
if
It's probably the Mediterranean Sea. If it's that's
okay. I was just curious where this summer camp they're going to is located.
summer camp. All right, I suppose that's one word for it.
The creative take on Pleasure Island.
They had play structures. It's a fun
Okay,
time.
I wanted to bring that up. I think we're in them.
All
Uh,
right, we're starting the
Uh,
act now.
Yeah,
Well, it's
no,
the
we're
beginning
moving
of the
into
next
Act 4.
act, but yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Moving
Let's
into
go to
Act
Act
4, I
4.
have something I want to say.
All right. Then I guess we'll just move right into Act 4
Okay.
if we
Oh,
got.
in case anyone needs to know, Geppetto got eaten by the dogfish.
Oh, yeah, that happened.
Filling in for
They're dead,
Monstro.
unfortunately,
Yeah,
but you know.
yeah. They're dead, but it's okay. They'll survive. Um,
Act
I
4. Yeah,
yes,
you want to come out
yes.
swinging, so come out
This was
swinging.
my thing that I was talking about before that I was gonna wait. Um, so I was really excited for one particular part from like the Disney story, uh, Pleasure Island, and I was really excited to see how I was like, wow, stop motion, they do something really crazy cool with that. It's gonna
And
Well, it was
Guillermo's,
you know
crazy and
yeah,
cool, but
Guillermo's monster making. Maybe they're not donkeys, but something.
yeah. And especially yeah, because Guillermo del Toro, I'm like I've seen Pan's Labyrinth, and I was like that's gonna be good. Um, so I was a little disappointed that it's only slightly in here, and it's not at all. You know, it's it still works for what it is. I'm not saying like it's like oh that's bastardization. It's lame or whatever. Because I think for knowing what we know about the quote unquote like fascist youth, um, it's pretty accurate.
mhm.
But I was like, man, I really wish like Pleasure Island or something was in here because that's like my favorite scene from Pinocchio.
Yeah, it was not
would
donkey making; it was soldier making.
Yeah, which
yeah
is the
would
same thing.
yeah
Bunch of jackasses.
Would Pleasure Island clash with the tone of this movie?
I
Unfortunately, I think it might.
that was like that's the one thing where I can sort of
Well,
like
if they
Then
put
again, there's a fucking giant dog whale monster thing,
that's
so
true.
yeah
If
what do
they
I know?
gave the boys like cafeteria food with super serum in it and
I
transformed them
don't
into something.
it's a little I it the circus is sort of like a fill in for that I guess like it's sort of closer to that kind of uh I
Ooh.
guess you call it depravity or whatever.
Mhm.
I think it would have been
Um,
cool to see some kind of more connection with death in this
yeah.
area, since they're sending kids to war and, you know.
Mm. It's something where it's just not like I think that it works for the story, but it's something where I was like, man, I really wish because I would just love to see what Guillermo del Toro would have come up for that scene. But I also know that he intentionally kind of tried to veer away from the Disney
Away from the
aspects of
magical
yeah,
stuff to more
yeah,
real.
Yeah,
hmm
to ground it.
yeah. You know,
Um,
talking cricket and you know.
So I'm more limited on time today, and it appears I will not be finishing this movie with you guys. But there's something in this act I wanted to talk
No, no, wait,
about,
hold on.
which
Sum up the last hour. Your own words. 15 seconds.
go,
Go. No, no, no.
yeah, go ahead, Crimson.
Go on.
teeters
Talk about
off.
what you want to talk about.
Um, it's probably going to be a hot take. So
Hot
this
chocolate?
whole military part, the summer camp, uh, did it need to be in this movie?
Yes.
Why?
Somewhat.
Pinocchio
Agree.
doesn't really learn or grow. Um, if we just had Pinocchio run away from the Mussolini part, and then Volp finds him, could be the same results. Nothing is gained from this scene except we get the the bad guy die and his son gets growth, but they're not really relevant to the story if you cut this part out. We didn't need the whole. I like the world being set in the war. That's not my problem. Just this camp part seems unnecessary.
Mm,
Um,
It was the
it's
creative liberty to make Pleasure Island fit.
yeah. It's I don't think like if you just took it out. Granted, you know, I don't know if it would be the same, but it because of the era they're using for inspiration, which is this interwar rise of fascism period of Italy. This is an aspect that kind of you have to touch on because it is, you know, historically part of it. And granted, I don't think you have to touch on it just for Pinocchio. Like you could just have it be in the background or whatever. But I think if you have to have a Pleasure Island fill in, this is kind of like the closest realist thing to that.
But I agree more could have been done with it
Yeah.
for a
It doesn't
stronger on
add
Pinocchio's character.
if
doesn't add to the
it,
character or the story. Is
It
my
just adds
problem
to
with it.
I think
Candlewick, who's
Well,
kind of
yeah,
it,
side
but
it's
character.
this segment is definitely here for Candlewick. I think the what would have justified this portion of the story being here is potentially Candlewick dying in Pinocchio's arms.
Uh,
Mm.
that's
But
that gives a
something
giving
little,
value
yeah.
to
that
death,
was
I would
dumb.
agree. That
That
would be good,
bomb
giving
was
value to death.
so
Yes.
close to killed his dad,
Yeah, I
and
mean, yeah, they
Candlewick
would have
was
all
totally
died.
fine. I That I find unbelievable.
The only thing I will say in agreement with Crimson is that we don't really see Candlewick for like the rest of the movie after this part,
Yeah,
really.
it's
So it
that's why
doesn't
that's what
really, yeah.
it makes it feel pointless because nothing really comes out of it. Like there's no consequences. We don't know what happened to Candlewick. We don't know what happened to we can presume what happened to Mr. Podesta given the bombs were dropping.
hmm
Um so I agree there should be more payoff for this being here cuz I unironically it does have my favorite sequence in the movie. Um but I agree that probably could be cut unfortunately.
I don't.
Because it doesn't because of as you say, it's a twisted take on Pleasure Island, but that didn't need to be here, this is a reimagining.
To me, I don't think it needed to be cut. I think it needed to be reworked.
Yeah, I would rather them rework
Oh,
it
yeah,
than cut it.
obviously
I
prefer
agree, but I'm
yeah,
saying as
obviously
what we
prefer
have, it
Yeah,
I
should
yeah.
be cut.
I prefer the rework, trust me, I think all of us can
Mhm,
do, but I agree with how it is, it doesn't need to be here,
yeah,
as it is.
yeah.
Um, so I guess I agree with you, Crimson, on that one, but I also will say that this does hold my favorite again, it holds my favorite scene, but I recognize the fact that it doesn't really
Is it the
do much
nighttime
for
bed
the
talk?
story. No, it's
Oh,
the
No,
war game.
yeah, or they both win, and then their dad is like, "Oh, both
do
Yeah.
you
won, huh?"
guys
I
find it interesting that Pinocchio's side had red to shoot with to give more of a look of blood than the yellow of Candlewick's?
No,
Mm,
I didn't put
not
much
sure.
thought
I
into
didn't
it.
read.
I
Yeah, I didn't read too
I
much into
I
except
think
for
it
the
would have
ending.
strengthened. I guess it's somewhat fitting because Crimson, you and I both in the making of showed everything was purposeful. I think
Mhm.
the reason why Candlewick's was yellow and not the red, just a
He's a
simple
coward.
swap, is because he didn't shoot Pinocchio.
Yeah, he's a coward, or like, in his father's words, or he's
Yeah.
a coward.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting
Mhm.
thing to call your son, I guess.
Yeah.
That fits his character,
Uh, so yeah,
Mr.
Candle.
Military Man.
my favorite, obviously, as I said, my favorite scene here is the war game that happens, just because it has that eerie, like they're playing like a game, like it's the happy
Yeah,
music's
It's
in the
paintball.
background. Yeah, it's happy music's in the background. They're laughing and they're giggling and they're having a fun time. But in the back of your head, you know what this is for.
yeah,
And so
war
it's
games.
it's
Yeah.
it definitely like it's definitely a very, very great use of tones clashing together to make a point.
It's kind of like
It's the idea that we glorify conflict and war.
yeah,
In It's one of those things where like it is a very deep and meaningful thing of storytelling. So I really appreciate it. It is why it's my favorite scene. But and I also like the way it ends as well with them. Again, ultimately they end up having fun. That's why they tie their flags together
yeah.
and win
But
together.
in war, both don't win when somebody has to lose.
No, this isn't
Yeah,
the Christmas miracle of the trenches.
yeah.
No, no.
So
Even then,
it
they killed each other
yeah. Well, I
afterwards.
meat afterwards, yeah.
Yeah,
But at least for a day.
yeah,
So it's one of those things where I think there's the message is very obvious here, but I think it's done in a very beautiful and artistic way that it doesn't bother me.
yeah. It's kind of
And
like
I do think this is the point of why this is why Treasure Island was changed to be this.
yeah.
Um
Um, yeah, I mean,
and
because it gives me similar vibes to Jojo Rabbit, like this kind of
yeah,
glorification of the battle part of it,
yeah,
and
it made me think of the Doctor Who episode with the family that's in like just before World War I starts. They're chasing the Doctor around, and he crash lands at a pretty much a British school, and
Oh,
then
yes, yes.
yeah. So
yeah,
yeah,
yes, yes,
I'm describing it to try and trigger your memories,
It
Crimson.
triggered.
So at the end of that, when they're all of like these young kids are all together, like huddled together with guns and stuff, because they train British children to do this in like at like the ages of 10 to like 15. They're all grouped up together and they're actually aiming guns and shooting at puppets that are coming to try and kill them. And in that, they're all freaking out. Like you can see how horrified their faces are, but the other music is extremely upbeat, and it's very again, it's a very similar display of what they're going for here.
yeah,
Um, and like I said, this is one of the few times where I think one of those big ideas that they've been playing around with the movie has its payoff here because they play a little bit with the idea of war earlier with the conversations between Geppetto and Pinocchio, ultimately culminating in this, the last like glorious fun thing before the bombs really start dropping.
you
Yeah.
know,
Um,
Now,
party is over.
Crimson, would you like to cover anything else in this act or the next
While you're here.
due to your cutoff? Yes.
All
Anything that
right.
stands out that you want to bring into
Let's see
light?
this act. I have the little nitpick of Pinocchio showing exhaustion while climbing the rope.
Oh, so
It
typical.
kind of goes with the whole drowning thing. I don't think a wooden puppet should for one breathe to drown. Um, so that's something I have. Everything else in this act, nothing big enough to take time for me. Second act,
Do you have anything
or
else you
last
want to
act.
say that you can't defend later on?
That's what I'm looking
We
for.
can.
Any more hot takes in the ending? Um, yeah, sure. So
Yeah, sure.
the forest sprite at the on the final act.
Yeah.
So why did she choose not to bring Pinocchio back when she could?
because she already bent the rules the first
Well,
time.
she's fine breaking it again.
Mm, probably probably she would have done it if Pinocchio hadn't died and then gone to her sister, times before, because then there was more. Once her sister was made aware of it, it was too
I think it's
late.
something they could have touched on, and it's another rule because
That's
that wouldn't make sense that you'd become mortal to just live again and go through the same cycle of with death.
Hmm.
I don't think death would allow it, and I don't think it's something that I think that
probably
life would
well.
allow if it was Pinocchio's choice to become mortal.
I think the other thing was, um, the more accurate thing would probably be more accurate on my part or what I think uh is because when he died that last time, it wasn't using this the the forest sprites or the life's rules. It was
Hmm.
breaking death's rule, which was he was no longer mortal. And that was, she was like, you can break it, but you only have one life and you won't be able to come back.
Remind
And
me,
so
did Geppetto
mhm,
ever ask to bring Pinocchio back, or was it just Sebastian?
No.
he was like,
Well,
can
Because
when
the
he's
life
praying at the
spirit,
tree, he's like,
yeah,
"Answer my prayers,
yeah,
please."
yeah.
And
I
He
it's
oh,
wanted a
that.
son. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
I
I
was just
don't
thinking the
think
life
he was.
spirit did it for Geppetto, and Geppetto didn't ask for him to be
Yes.
brought back.
Yeah,
Well, he wanted Carlo back, but she just gave him Pinocchio or what, it's like a boy. He didn't
yeah.
give him Carlo. But she used his spirit, so technically, but yeah, so it wasn't actually Carlo.
I don't remember Geppetto asking for Pinocchio to be brought back at the end. He just kind of
Mm,
accepted that once he was dead, he not coming back. Because he's like,
I
yes,
think he said you brought him
you
back
brought me
before, you
such
can do it
terrible,
again.
terrible
Yeah.
joy. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I think he was fighting for him to come back,
Uh,
was he
I
not?
don't. Yeah,
I just
maybe.
think she
Yeah.
wouldn't bring him back because of Pinocchio, because it was Pinocchio's choice to become mortal. So that's just going against
Ah,
Pinocchio.
okay.
She did it because Sebastian told, and that was the wish she granted him. I think the only one she may have had a little difference on is if Geppetto
he
asked
did
because she
say
made it for Geppetto.
please bring him back,
Oh yeah,
didn't he?
real boys
Yeah.
don't come back. There was a whole
Yeah, real
story
boys
about
don't
that.
come back, yeah.
Yeah, he
Being a
he
real
did it.
boy.
He became a real boy to come back, and real boys don't come back. Because I think you're right, Sprinks, with that whole. He was trying to like the I guess the rule, quote unquote, is that Pinocchio made the choice to not be brought back by becoming immortal in order to save his father.
Mhm.
And then the reason he is brought back is because of Cricket's
Sebastian's
wish.
wish,
Yes.
Now, as to
which
how
is
So
this
it'd still go
actually,
honored
against
yeah,
from
Pinocchio's
the
yeah,
wish
sprite.
then. That
yeah,
shouldn't change that.
but
Shouldn't, but it does.
Cricket
Weird.
has the freedom to make that wish, I suppose.
Yeah,
Yes.
the sprite must honor as she said, anything that he wishes for.
I agree, it's muddled Crimson.
I'm sure.
I
It's
just,
muddled.
I'm sure
I
Death
just,
is pissed at
Yeah.
Sebastian over this, but
It's muddled, but I think there's enough of there's enough there where if you just don't think about it like overly hard, it makes enough sense and it flows okay. But like the second you start trying to decode it, it kind of falls apart a little bit. Does not.
I guess two hopefully quick bullet
Okay.
points before I get to my ratings
Go
and
on
I have
then.
to leave.
Go on then.
go ahead.
So he shouldn't be able to swim to save Geppetto. Wood floats.
Yeah,
Um, that just wouldn't happen.
real boys don't.
He wouldn't be able to create enough force to go under.
Yeah.
he still has a
Um,
wooden body.
yeah,
Sprinks.
I'll go
Oh
back to the
yes, yes.
MythBusters with the Pirates of the Caribbean boat.
I love that episode. All right,
um,
go on.
and the second thing, I Sprinks, you'll probably be able to answer me best on this. I haven't seen the Pinocchio movie in a long time, the animated one. Did they use lying as a benefit in that movie for him?
Yes.
Yes, it was when he's in Stromboli's cage or in the cage in Stromboli's cart, and he uses it to get the key with his nose.
Okay,
It was not in
then I
Monster
will have
though.
an issue then.
Yeah. They
That,
they
that's
broke
fine.
up all the wood. Yeah.
I just, for some reason, remember it being seen as a negative all the way through the movie. But if it's used positively, I
But then
guess
again,
that's
in the
I
Disney
don't have an
one,
issue
he
here.
lies so much he makes a bird nest and brings birds to life, which
Oh
doesn't
yeah,
happen in
that's
this
a
one.
different issue.
Yeah, but
Yeah, they
Um,
love their birds.
okay, then that's fine. I was having an issue where they kind of made lying a positive in this, but if it's a constant, I guess that's something. All right, I'll just get on my ratings if you guys are all right with that.
Go right ahead.
All right, go right ahead.
All right, so I'll go with my subjective. Uh, I did enjoy this. I don't know if I enjoy it more than the original because I barely remember it, but I might.
the Disney
The
original. So,
The
yes, the
Disney
Disney
original, yeah,
original. The because I don't think I've seen any other Pinocchios. The art style, the stop motion, really drew me in. Uh, pretty much mesmerized me throughout the whole thing. Because usually when you get something super pristine and professional like this, you kind of get used to it by the end of the product. Like
Mhm,
like Avatar 2, great example. Beginning like,
mhm.
whoa, this is awesome, and then by the end, it's just the movie. You get used to it. This, I was just mesmerized the whole way through. Um, Everything was smooth in the beginning, and then they added the water. Whether not that's practical or not, it still adds to the visual of it, and it just keeps being visually interesting and well done. So I really liked that, and was jumping between 6.5 and 7, and I think I'm going to land on a 7 for it subjectively. Objectively, I I had a wide range. I was like, could be 7, could be 7.5, could even be an 8. By the end of what we talked about, and maybe you guys could have said stuff in the final act that I'm going to miss out on,
Mm.
um, could vary it even more. But I think I'm landing at a 7. Huge big part of that is the summer camp. It's a pretty decent chunk of the movie that is pretty irrelevant, which I think is a problem for the movie. Granted, like we said, it could be really good, but we'd have to rework it a little bit. But as a final product, what we have, that's a big chunk of the movie that's pretty pointless. Um, Pinocchio doesn't change, the plot doesn't change. It can be worked around. The villain Volp is pretty good. I love the way he died. It was pretty
Pretty
pretty hard
brutal, but
hitting.
awesome.
Yes. Um, Geppetto, I like Geppetto. He was pretty good. He took getting swallowed up by a monster pretty well.
Yeah.
Maybe too well, but I'm not going to knock it for that. I can't really knock any of the animation. I mean, even the lighting and the camera work, spot on. And I'm not usually one to point out lighting, but they really put focus on it in this. And this is, it's not even like a real air quote thing. They had to really plan it out for some shots
gonna
here.
make me sound like a broken record later.
Yeah.
Wah, wah.
Well, yeah,
Sorry.
whatever.
um, see, anything else I want to cover and take away from Sprinks? Uh, no, you guys got most of my points earlier, so I guess I'll be dropping out.
All right,
All
Uh,
right,
Crimson. I'll
you can
Have
see
think
fun
you.
with
on
it.
it,
Fast.
and
I'll see you for Rainbow Six later.
any more thoughts or anything you can bring up in the recap.
Alright,
True.
I will do
Yeah.
that. Bye bye.
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 And then there were
So
3.
are we still in
Yeah,
Act 4?
we're still in Act 4.
We are still in Act 4. Yes. Do we
Talked
have anything
about.
more to talk about the summer camp? Because we kind of I went on my whole war game spiel, but I also
Yeah.
skipped over the talk between Pinocchio and Candlewick. Did you guys want to talk about that?
When Candlewick was getting a friendly bond with Pinocchio, with like
Mhm.
chucking the pillow around and everything before going to bed at this, in this camp, I wrote down that Candlewick's going to be the dead war buddy cliche.
Yes. I kind of figured that that's what they were gonna go because Pinocchio, they went on this whole speech of like how they like war, and then obviously it's a game the next day. That's why I was expecting some horrifying thing where Candlewick to die in his arms, that sort of thing. It would have brought in a lot of more of the immortality questions, and it brought in more of the like life immortality can bring eternal suffering or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought, like I said, there's a lot of groundwork here for that. and that's why I was disappointed they didn't really pay any of that off. Um,
What about you, Sinister? You think that way about it, or
Um, I mean, I like the kind of the because I kind of thought that like even though Candlewick was kind of antagonistic to Pinocchio at first because he's different and townspeople don't really like different people.
yeah,
Uh, I kind of did in the back of my mind expect them to become friendly on some terms just because they both kind of had imperfect fathers in their own vastly
yeah.
different vastly different ways. Um, so I like this scene where they're actually kind of it feels like it's obviously I think it's a little bit faster than it would be in like real life, but it like the conversations and how they kind of are talking to one another feels like
For as for as quick
mm,
as the as you say, for as quick as like the bonding is, it
mhm.
feels very naturally done in dialogue.
Yeah, I
If
mean when I became friends with Crimson in like elementary or like middle school or whatever, like we bonded over kind of like a rivalry with each other. So like challenging each other. So like this, like, well, I love war. I know I love war more than you do, that kind of thing. So that does feel kind of real to me in that way of some a rival can become a friend, just by becoming being a rival or something.
just by virtue of circumstance too.
Yeah.
It's yeah,
So
I kind of agree. So go on. Yes.
yeah, so I'm just like I like that little interaction, and you, but and I think we already touched on it that kind of I would have liked to have kind of seen more of a payoff from them kind of bonding together and sort of sticking up for one another
Hmm.
in the end of the movie because it really kind of isn't anything, and it sort of Crimson's point was that it kind of doesn't need to be here because of that, just by virtue of that. Um, I think is my only issue with all that kind of build up and scene in general.
Yeah. I know I talked a bit more about like the thematic elements and possibilities that come out of it, but I think I need to put on the record that I think the scene is also I think the dialogue is very efficient. It gets the point across,
Hmm.
and it feels real even though it's very fast. So I actually really like their bonding scene. Um.
I think something
So
that helps make Candlewick feel more like a kid than adulting to fit more what his father's image of him is to be is even though Candlewick knows that Pinocchio can die and come back, he still restricts from shooting him. He doesn't
Yeah,
tell
because
Pinocchio, it's like,
yeah,
"Oh, I'll just see you in a while. You'll come back." And Pinocchio's like, "Yeah, okay," and then gets shot. He doesn't
yeah,
shoot his friend, which also kind
yeah.
of goes into Candlewick's dad aiming a gun at Pinocchio to shoot him. Because I was curious what his goal is in that. If he's going to shoot Pinocchio just to know he'll come back.
I
well,
think
he probably
the goal of it
I'm
is in
sure
the
it's to
same
set
way
an
that
example to Candlewick, but
yeah.
yeah,
It's this is a death without any consequence of the person being actually dead.
but
So
it's more like are you willing? He's testing his son's
yeah,
resolve. I think is what
mhm,
the goal of it.
yeah.
I agree. It's odd that he chooses Pinocchio because Pinocchio can come back, but I understand the principle behind it. He just wants to test his son's resolve.
Like if you can't kill this guy who is
And
not gonna be dead, you can't kill anybody.
like,
yeah.
how are you gonna? How can I
Yeah,
trust you to go to war beside me? That sort of thing.
yeah. Um, but yeah, and he doesn't want to shoot his friend, even if he knows he's not gonna be dead, permanently, which
Hmm.
is a
It's a character on Candlewick that's I think Ryder, you're the one who said pacing was in this part of it was off. Candlewick's character seemed real, just rushed.
Yes,
It's like
I
only in the
had
scene he's hinted a little, here and there, especially when he first meets Pinocchio and tells him to like burn his feet.
yeah. This
yeah,
what a great entrance to a character.
yeah.
Um,
You should warm your feet by the fire.
yeah, that's one. It's the but yeah, I agree. It's the pacing of the movie was a bit off to me. It was very off to me the first time I watched it. It flowed a little bit better the second time, just because I watched it sequentially and like without having
You
to
weren't
pause
taking
it or
yeah, you weren't
anything.
taking notes, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't taking notes. So it came off to me a little bit better in the case of Candlewick that way. But I think overall he is missing some more build up because he's sprinkled throughout the movie a lot. You know, he's there in the church. He's like the first person to say something and point out Pinocchio.
When his
Then, you know,
mother
we have the
kisses him
fire.
goodbye.
Yeah, his mother kisses him goodbye. Uh he's there for the Mussolini seeing the circus again. And he's having fun there. You can see like his father. He gets amused by the parody that they're doing of the normal song, and his father gets disappointed in him about it. So there is groundwork. There is a lot of groundwork done in the background and subtlety for him. So while his introduction is late, they still accomplished everything they needed to, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I agree that the pacing is a bit
Yeah,
off
it
just
wasn't
because it's so
sudden.
sporadic. Yeah.
No, I wouldn't. It works, like, from I think just, like, pacing for the film, it's kind of feels, like, a little bit off, but I think overall, written-wise, it works.
Yeah, it's kind of what I think.
Yeah,
It's where general takeaway for a lot of the movie, I think, as well for
yeah,
me. Um,
I would agree. Because
does
that
that
I
and
was gonna say that was my one when I was watching it, I was like, I kinda I was like, I'm really taken by this, I'm really liking it, and I'm like, the only with the exception of the Pleasure Island, um, the only thing my only, like, other big takeaway was, like, the pacing of this feels a little bit off,
yeah,
um, but I
I
only
don't.
watched it one time, so I don't might the second time I
Having
watch
like I
it
said,
might be a
having
little bit
watched it a
better.
second time, the pacing is a little bit better. It's still it's the issue is still there though. I think
Mm,
because you will feel you feel how fast certain things move, and then how slow certain other things move. So the pacing is
yeah,
still a little bit off, but it definitely flowed a little bit better for me the second time.
alright.
Sinister, do you think the Candlewick's dad is the coachman figure in this film?
Um, see, I was trying to figure
The
that
the
out.
the thing that helped me think that that was his role was when Pinocchio wakes up in the truck they're in.
Yeah,
He's the one adult individual, and everyone else is kids.
yeah. I think he is. I think he's just because that is the Pleasure Island, point of the
That
story.
he's bringing boys here.
Yeah,
So okay,
to become, men and all that stuff or
okay. I was just curious on that connection.
yeah.
If you thought
Yeah,
so
I'm
or
no,
not.
trying to.
yeah, I think he's the coachman
Okay,
figure.
because Count Vorp is very much a combination of Honest John and Stromboli into one.
Yeah, there's definitely this because of how they're kind of streamlining the characters and so they're mismatching and also trying to steer away from the Disney version.
Cookie
Uh,
cutter.
yeah, there's definitely some kind of some people are doubling up for multiple characters, and so they have multiple things going on. Which is, I mean, it's fascinating to see that like, oh wow, we had like three characters that could all just be one character basically,
Yeah,
or
it was a creative
Very,
change that works.
it's very
yeah,
efficient writing. Yeah,
yeah,
the, make it streamlining it a bit more is probably a good idea.
hmm
I will say one thing that did annoy me. Candlewick's dad has no sense of priorities. I mean, bombs are
yeah,
dropping, dude, and he
yeah.
still wants to
I mean, it
have
could
his
just be
son
thought of
shoot
like we
Pinocchio.
are strong Italians. I don't know. That only goes so far as to
Yeah, and, like, when the
allude.
bombs are dropping, like, right outside, I'm like, "I think you could move this to after you deal with the problem of being bombed."
No, we must do it now. But yeah,
I also because I brought it up with the whole pine cone flying out of the church undamaged, I wanna point out the fact that Pinocchio flew out of the fucking bomb zone undamaged, and
Yeah,
well, he's made from a tree, not a pine
yeah.
cone. But the
So,
hat does end up being burnt to crisp. Yeah,
there's a fair bit of plot armor here.
yeah,
but Candlewick was right next to him in the trench.
Yeah,
The
which is also
dad
another part of
was
the problem.
strung up in the rope. and Pinocchio went
He
sailing,
died like who's the guy from
Candlewick and the dad
Tarzan?
would be dead.
I assumed Candlewick was dead until we see him one scene later
Yeah,
leaving.
leaving. I I think that's a problem.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
there's
a
a
bit of a
few.
problem there. Yeah.
There's a
I love
few.
the movie, and I'm not gonna be like there's
If
no
they show
problem.
yeah, if they showed Pinocchio, in the trench and Candlewick like getting up and running, and then showing, the dad getting stuck in the rope climb and everything, then sure. That that I can believe a little more, but the fact that he was
See
unconscious
the
right
issue
next
with
to him,
yeah, it's a problem. um, and then we have our monkey and our count show up once again.
and this is
Oh
why you said they
no.
teleported?
Yeah,
They were yeah.
they are the It's either way. It's convenient here. I say the teleported is a
Yeah.
joke. It's convenient that they're here.
I agree it's a convenience. It's very
Yeah, I kind
I,
of thought we were
coincidental
done
that
with
they're
them.
yeah,
here.
yeah. The fact they just showed up, I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? What fucking luck?
And they already had this fire cross built. Like
Yeah.
they're prepared
Yeah, the cross just
waiting.
is there.
Were they gonna
It's
go
And
into the camp and
also,
drag Pinocchio out? I mean, I don't know what their plan really was. I guess
I
they knew
don't.
Pinocchio was here
they probably
I
planned
I'm
like
so
to
I'm more. And there's also
because
convenience to the fact that they're
yeah.
alive. The fact that they Mussolini didn't execute them.
yeah. I'm
It's
thinking they
also another
saw
problem.
Pinocchio. I can understand how they know where Pinocchio is,
Yeah.
because Pinocchio was taken by the Kennewick's dad.
Yeah.
But what their plan was to get Pinocchio, who knows?
Again, they're lucky to be alive. I'm not
Yeah.
even willing to go as far as they have access to something to get them to leave because he says that everything was destroyed. So I presume even his car, or whatever he was using to transport himself, was also destroyed.
Yeah, the service
So
is all gone.
Oh
so
good.
it is an exorbitant amount of convenience that he's here at all to begin with. I'm him knowing generally where he might be going because the Podesta grabbed him. That might be enough
It,
to put two together. Uh,
honestly, I'm like I'm thinking about it a little bit. I don't think they need to have this scene here.
they don't. That's my point.
No, yeah. I don't think they need
And
to
like I
like
said,
you could
it raises this scene. While the point of it is Spazzatura breaking free finally.
yeah, which I'm all for that, but
I mean, like that's the point of it. But like
yeah.
they don't need this scene here. Like
I
his
think
Spazzatura could have shut up on his own.
I think the reason they have this scene is to keep with the tension of the bombing. Not for
Yeah.
Pinocchio to like
Possibly.
wander off
Yeah.
and then get captured and just get ramped up again to getting burned and whatever. I think it's they already
Yeah.
have that. They didn't want to break a pace because if they didn't, I think the pacing would be worse. They keep the
Yeah.
tension of the scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, they keep the tension, but they sacrifice the story. And obviously, as the writer, I don't appreciate that trade. It's generally not
Mhm.
going to work out for you. So, like I said,
Yeah.
it's the scene is extremely weakened because of this convenience of him showing up.
Yeah.
Though I do appreciate what they're trying to go for it, and obviously,
Yeah, I mean,
we kind of
I like the outcome of it because I
like I said,
Spazzatura,
it
is
is the
good.
character arc for Spazzatura, and
Yeah.
I'll get to him in a second. We
And
kind
it's
of
a
already talked
planned
about the whole.
storyline to also get Pinocchio to the ocean.
Yes, it is. The intention here is to get him into the ocean to strand him so he can reunite with Cricket and Geppetto.
Geppetto.
Um, so we kind of already talked about how I think the fire is inconsistent, being an issue with Pinocchio's legs.
Go on then.
Yeah, we already talked about
Um,
that.
yeah, we don't need to talk about it more. I'm just reiterating so we can kind of gloss over it because I don't. I think we've already said that all that needs to be said on it.
Yeah.
Because I do want to get to one of the strong points about the scene, which is Spazzatura, because the him being fearful of him the entire scene, even when he's helping Pinocchio, up until like the
Yeah.
mouth twitches, the claymation does the animators did a fucking amazing job animating like the
The
range of
split
emotions
second emotional, yeah.
that Spazzatura goes through in the split seconds, right up until he makes the decision to growl and attack Count Volp. So I do think they did a wonderful job with that.
Mhm. Yeah. I honestly like just in kind of talking about the scene, like the more we talk about it, the more I'm kind of like Yeah, it doesn't really need to be here. I I wish they kind of would have done something else. And I don't, not a good criticism. I don't know what they would have done to get like Spazzatura to have the same sort of emotional into that arc. Otherwise,
I don't think we needed to have it be this upfront.
big,
They want
yeah,
if they wanted to include Spazzatura back in the story, it could be that Spazzatura just followed him and didn't really make a plan to
yeah,
rescue him, and it would have just been like Pinocchio waking up and Spazzatura is just there like waiting for him, half terrified as they're listening to bombs drop.
I guess, yeah. That's a possibility.
And
But what I was gonna
like
say was
the idea that he had already
yeah,
left him. He made the choice, and he's on his own. He's terrified about
because
it.
honestly, like him like with the bomb dropping and him getting thrown out. I know you're not a fan of that, but getting thrown out of like the building, like he could just like fall into the water and then get like carried away, somewhere and end up getting so you know what I mean? Like it's like
Yeah,
you kind of don't need like a big crucifix bonfire, Joan of Arc situation to end up in the water somehow. It
yeah.
seems kind of like a
I said
unnecessary
I like
step.
if he was blown out of the building instead of rolling down the hill, maybe he just land on the street, and that would be like a
Yeah,
reintroduction as we see Spazzatura grab him off the street.
yeah,
Like like I said, there is ways to work him into the story like in a more subtle way without it being involving the count. Because I think the count's the biggest problem in the scene.
yeah. Because he just doesn't. He doesn't
He's kind
like
of
the
blinded.
motivation's there. Yeah, the motivation's there, but his his ability to do anything given the situation is not there,
Yeah.
and his need to like actually go and do something about it isn't.
And again, I'm more of a like strong emotional payoff and subtlety. So I feel like Spazzatura being there, half terrified by himself, would be explanation enough as to what happened.
No, yeah, maybe a little
Uh,
bit like burnt a little, or something because they burned down the circus and he
yeah.
just barely escaped. Yeah, I mean, there's ways
There's
you
some,
could do it. I
uh,
think.
uh,
I think the whole section of death, they chose to go with the whole section of the second death, talking about the hourglasses and whatnot, then to expand on how Pinocchio in the truck and the Count Vorp and all that scenario that was going on while Pinocchio was dead.
Yeah,
Because I think that would have
well,
fleshed it out a little more, but that would have taken away from any screen time focused on Geppetto or Pinocchio.
yeah,
Because is there ever a scene in this movie that doesn't focus on the two of them? There's one that comes to mind, but other than that, the one that comes to mind is
uh,
when Spintura goes up to Count Vorp to tell him about Pinocchio.
probably Cricket making his life in the house is also the only other one I could think of. So we got a few of Cricket
I guess so.
by
Yeah.
himself. Um, and like I said, it's not a matter of expanding on other things to sacrifice this and just patching up the story. Um,
yeah. Because I think for the most part everything fits. It's just there seems to be some unnecessary fat that can be trimmed.
yeah, Act Four is probably the weakest because of that. Like, because a lot of this can
'Cause you got to create
culminate to
payoff. Yeah,
yeah. Um,
They just had to find a way. Because I believe this scene was used to get um, Spezzatura to Pinocchio, to connect in
yeah,
yeah,
that way. That was the main
yeah.
thing of
That's
this scene.
that's the only thing.
and
Yeah,
that's the goal of the scene. I agree, but like I said, I would have probably have dropped the count just because that just raised more questions.
So
yeah.
you
'Cause it's like,
think
how did he get away from
Pinocchio rolled to the
Mussolini? Da, da, da.
cliff and then Spezzatura would have just arrived?
No,
Something.
I
Maybe.
said I already
Yeah.
specified what I would want. That's
Oh,
not
Like
sorry.
it.
he like would end up in the road somewhere, and then like Spazzatura would
Comes and
kind of yeah,
drags him out of the
Okay.
fighting.
I guess that
yeah,
would
yeah,
have. I guess that would still pace fine. It would
Yeah.
take down the tension until they got eaten by the dogfish.
I don't think you need to. I don't think it would take down the tension at all. It would just be like, because imagine, Pinocchio comes to, they're hiding in underneath something, and you see you see Spazzatura just shaking, and you still hear the bombs dropping. I think that would be a very powerful thing. You're not losing any tension that way.
For that connection, no. Yeah, no, I agree. That would still fit, but I mean, from them to get to the ocean, because they don't know Geppetto's
Oh, yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah, the issue with that's a
How to
different issue.
accidentally get them into the ocean?
I don't think you need to accidentally. I think they could intentionally grab us like just a random rowboat to try and escape. Ultimately,
I
so
get.
like they would just intentionally make that as a choice to get away.
I guess that could be made sense because they took a boat to get to where they are. So I guess Pinocchio can believe that to get back to Geppetto, they have to go back across the water.
Yeah.
There's yeah,
And obviously they're trying to get away from the bombs, so that doesn't necessarily lower the tension. Will also give them an excuse to get back into the ocean.
Okay. And there we go again, rewriting the script form.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like I said, I love the intention behind the scene. It's just really the convenience of it that really undercuts what makes this very impactful. Um, all right, that's all I have for
Yeah,
anything on the island, quote unquote.
That's all I have for
yeah.
Act 4.
All right. Spent a lot of time on that. I'm surprised, but I'm not
Yeah,
against it.
yeah. I think the only thing I have left for Act 4 because I didn't really touch on the afterlife thing where we get the notes on
The
pretty much how
hourglass
the
system? Or
the hourglass notes, and then he kind of explains like what if you don't see your father again. I kind of like that the death rabbits are annoyed with Pinocchio's presence now. Like they're just yeah, boss is up there that way. Like they're annoyed by the fact that he undercut their jobs a little bit.
well,
It
being
kind of
with
amused
what you
me.
brought up beforehand, it was either you, Red, or Crimson, of that this isn't the only time life has done this to give an inanimate object, life, that the rabbits would have history with other things that did this, and Pinocchio's not the first.
Yeah.
That
Mhm.
might be the reason why they're not surprised by it, and they're just like, "Oh yeah, go that way."
Yeah. Well, also this is Pinocchio's second time, so they're used to him.
Well,
So
yeah, but I still
yeah,
mean his first time coming out of
you're
the coffin. They don't go, "Oh gosh, we got to tell the boss about that. This isn't right." They just go, "Oh well, boss wants you."
yeah, like I said,
Log on.
I definitely do think they have done it before. It's definitely has something that's been happened before. Um, da, 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 da. Okay, yeah, that's pretty much all I got for
Act
Act 4.
5.
So Act 5.
Monster
Uh,
to the end.
yeah,
All
it's pretty much.
a little nitpick I'll choose. It
Oh.
showed Geppetto getting a fish before,
Mhm.
uh,
Oh yeah, okay.
and then this time he gets another fish when Pinocchio, meets up with him, and then they start cooking it, which leads to Sebastian seeing the smoke lead out and how they'll get out. Did they not cook the first fish they caught?
Oh, I wrote that down. I
I think
was
they
super
did.
annoyed. Like how? Yeah, I was very annoyed with that.
I find it convenient that Sebastian noticed it when Pinocchio was around, and not like
Yep.
they knew beforehand.
Yep,
So
I agree. Like that's something they would have absolutely noticed because they've been there for a while.
yeah, they would have
At
no.
least,
Their main thought would have how to get out.
yeah, they wouldn't have fucking tried to set up shop. Uh, um, so did he swallow a like a whole tower hole? Right? Like was that supposed to be a
Oh, the
There was
lighthouse.
a
yeah?
lighthouse.
It,
Yeah.
it is a lighthouse. Okay, so yeah, I was like, how did he swallow that like hole? Did he swallow the whole island? Is that why they're
He's a big monster. He swallowed the lighthouse.
yeah?
I don't know.
You
It
saw
never
the
showed that
lighthouse.
part
Come
of the
on, man.
movie. I don't know.
It's fucking
It's a way for
size.
them to get up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly what it's for. It's like how big is this monster to swallow an entire lighthouse? That's what
Also,
confused me.
Big enough to swallow a whole
yeah,
lighthouse.
also
There
the
you go.
anatomy of the monster doesn't quite make much sense
No, it
Oh,
doesn't.
because the
don't start
mouth
poking
to
holes
the
now. We'll
mouth
be
to
here
the
all day.
blowholes, and then showing where the blowholes are to the, I guess, stomach acid that they're in, which also has like a waterfall effect, doesn't match up to the mouth and everything on the out. Yeah, the outside does not fit the inside.
It's a TARDIS. Come on.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely not not real. It's a
Yeah.
monster.
See,
This is-
I'll point a little more fingers at it, being that Guillermo wanted it to be set in more of a realistic way.
Yeah.
So in that way, I'll point a little more. It's like you didn't quite do it with this, and otherwise it'd
Well,
just be a cartoon. But
he couldn't, like, okay, I got a wooden boy, I got a talking cricket, and I got life and death. I need a monster. I need a monster in this movie because that's what Guillermo del Toro does best. He makes really, really good monsters. So he was like, oh, it's a whale. No, no, no. It has to be a monster. It has to be a dogfish.
well, the monster would be fine. I think the only thing they needed fixed is have the blowholes farther down the body to show the actual
Mm,
traversal to get to the stomach wherever they are to exit, because it's kind of
I,
looks like it's ears, like it's right next to the
yeah,
head.
that's maybe what it
Uh,
actually.
yeah.
I'm just
I
saying,
got,
I,
I got,
when the thing opens
yeah,
its mouth, you should be able to see the lighthouse.
yeah, probably.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, you're right. Sorry.
You are right. I
Well,
can't
what they're
argue with
showing on the
you.
outside and inside, that's what I'm matching up, and they don't do that. So, I guess it's a
I
little.
have,
Oh,
I got a funny nitpick.
Oh,
might be the
It's
one I
definitely
I
have.
better
bad.
laugh.
It's definitely bad, but it is a nitpick nonetheless. Fucking Pinocchio Minecraft swims up a waterfall to
Yep,
hit the
he
mine.
doesn't
Ah,
climb up; he swims
ah,
upstream.
yeah,
I have that in my notes too.
he's really
I
light.
li- Fucking Minecraft. So
I mean, it
I'm
shows
like,
wood
this is fucking
floats.
ridiculous.
Yeah, wood floats.
Upstream.
Yeah, upstream.
It's a
They
listen.
showed early on. We already nitpicked about it, Crimson and I, about the gravity inside Pinocchio's body doesn't match where Sebastian was standing.
I I'd call
Yeah.
bullshit, but I'd call bullshit on that being a shitty nitpick, but there's no reason why they need that part because he shouldn't have missed grabbing it.
You could just hit the bomb on the way down. Like,
Yeah,
seriously.
I it's
Yeah, it was
unnecessary.
I did facepalm when I saw it, but I still laughed
I
because
also yeah.
it was definitely like, funny, stupid, but it doesn't need to be here.
They
Come
could have,
on.
yeah, they could have just fixed it with him climbing.
Yeah.
Could have fixed it in post.
Um,
So
let's
yeah,
see. Oh yeah, they used lying to escape the
showing a good message for all children. Lie when you need to, and you'll be okay.
it's fair. Um,
Yeah,
let's see. What was the other thing? Oh yeah, I actually really liked Geppetto and Pinocchio's reunion. It's very short, but it was meaningful.
yeah. Like, oh my
I
god, I missed you so much.
I guess
It's one of those things where I wish there was. It's one of those things where I really wish there was more time between the two of them.
Yeah,
Because like I said, what we have works. I just don't think it's enough to justify the reactions we're getting here in the last act, which is
all I can really go
again,
off of it is that Geppetto's been on this whole journey as long as Pinocchio's been out to just find Pinocchio.
yeah, and we can assume that Cricket's just been laying into him the entire time, but
yeah. He's just been like, you had the
uh,
high ground. Why did you not take it?
so it's one of those things where like I really wish there was more screen time because it would definitely make this more impactful. With what we have, it works. It's just not as strong as it could be.
I guess. I
Yeah,
guess that also kind of plays into the pacing then.
I mean, yeah, this is the pace. It's
It's character bonding and connection.
yeah,
It shouldn't
it does play
in
well.
the movie that has been shown of Geppetto and Carlo in the beginning of like how much a son means to Geppetto. There shouldn't be more bonding time of Candlewick and Pinocchio than Geppetto and Pinocchio.
Yeah, that's also my issue. It's like there
Well, I
definitely
think
should have been more.
so. I
'Cause
mean, with that, I think they're both kind of on their journeys of acceptance, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
they.
So
Yeah,
like I don't want them to accept each other, but I needed something like because you could still be fatherly without being accepting, if you know what I'm saying.
yeah. Oh yeah,
Well,
I
like
think there needed
when
to
he
be
says
more. There needed to
goodnight
be
and almost calls him Carlo. It's kind of
yeah.
a
yeah,
old habit, but slightly accepting.
Oh, I thought he was gonna almost say son, and then he stopped and was just, like, well, you're
yeah,
not
yeah.
my son.
Yeah, he was about to say goodnight, son.
Of his son. Okay.
Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, same intention. So you're
yeah,
not
yeah.
too far
Either
off.
way, you're yeah.
Um,
Can
so
read.
like there's definitely like the mistake is there. So we already have that. But we like I said, what we needed is more like being fatherly without accepting. We needed a bit more of that.
Yeah.
in order to make the payoff scene here, which is he's gone on the journey to accept by now, or at least to a degree. Even though if it was a fair bit, if it was off screen, the idea he's chasing him down is enough to prove that he likes him.
It would have been
You know, you
stronger if it was Geppetto's idea to use the line to get out and not Sebastian's,
I
because then
agree.
that would have
Yeah.
been more care shown of Geppetto to Pinocchio.
Mhm.
Yeah. So like I said, there it works, but like it could have been like it's one of those things where this movie could have been, I think, amazing, and it just has it like a missteps like this that kind of hold it back from being that. So
I
that's
think
why I feel
probably
that's why I feel the need to harp away at this.
yeah, and I think it did. I think the whole long gestation period definitely I think hampered it a little bit. 'Cause I don't know, you know, we don't I don't by the end of this, I don't know how many different forms this went through before we finally got it and, at this point. So,
15
Yeah.
years.
yeah, so and you can kind of I think if you granted, like, oh, you could say like, "Oh, we had 15 years, you should have been able to get it right." Like, there shouldn't be, like, any missteps or whatever, but it's like, no, in 15 years, you kinda lose sight of, like, what is the story here? Or you lose sight of, like, what's the goal?
Your
Or
goals and objective do change.
yeah. So,
You have a basic story to
I
begin with, and then you keep
yeah.
finding better pieces to the story, and you're like, this makes this better, this makes this better.
Yeah,
And then when you look at all the better pieces together, they don't fit.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, because I
That's why
like
you have
the
the as a writer, I leave
yeah,
myself extensive notes about what my vision is and what my plan is.
Mm,
So that
yeah,
way, even if I add things, which I do, I don't
yes.
deviate
You know,
much from the original.
with
You know.
with the history the three of us have with script writing together, we
Yeah.
kind of know how it goes.
well, like, I
Yeah.
remember there was a this is one of my famous this has nothing to do with the story at all, whatever, but, tangents, but, there's a famous, that was unreleased for many years, famous album, by the Beach Boys called "Smile." It's been released now in the sessions or whatever, but the guy Brian Wilson was in a blur of creativity, right? And just doing these amazing things, and was doing everything in sections, and hours and hours spent getting the perfect flute sound or the perfect violin sound, all this stuff, and all in like these little mini pieces that he then like stitched together. And he finally like was you do that for so long, and then you kind of lose sight of, is this good anymore? I can't tell. Like I don't know where I've lost like the plot. Like I can't tell if this is good or this is just complicated. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
I
Yeah.
I agree. I've stated that about some of our movie picks. I mean, things we've chosen for the podcast. You need
Mm.
some bad stuff to make the good stuff better. And if all you have is good, out of those goods, you will rule stuff to start being bad. Like
Yeah,
something's not as good as the other. So if he's doing all these musical scores that are all, good to him and perfects, after a while, even though he started off with a perfect one, he'll pinpoint which one's worse.
yeah. I mean, yeah. It's the whole thing, because you don't because good doesn't mean that much if it's not bad. Like we wouldn't if everything was good, we wouldn't really notice. It would just be normal. It wouldn't be
Yeah.
like, oh, that's good. So and there's I mean there's some good stuff in here. There's some not good stuff, but
Yeah.
I think the good stuff. But no, yeah, I think there's definitely because I like the Pinocchio part of his journey of accepting himself as an individual, not as Carlo. I think that works really, really well. But the Geppetto accepting that Pinocchio isn't Carlo feels a little bit more undeserved because
I
he's
like I said,
kind of
it's
yeah.
definitely the conclusion I want him to come to because obviously I
Yes.
that's what that's what makes the story meaningful.
Mhm,
I agree. It's just the missteps that were taken to get there is problematic.
mhm,
It detracts from. It makes it undeserved, as you said.
mhm.
Um, and
Getting arty.
yeah, I mean, we knew we were gonna get to artsy when we got here at the end. um, Towards the end.
So
I
the
don't really have
dogfish
much to say.
explodes.
The
The
dogfish
dog
explodes. They
the
defy
mouth.
gravity when they get sneezed out.
Yeah, they
Um,
float, for, like, 5 seconds and then get
yeah,
sucked out of the blowhole.
which
Oh,
again,
that's
very
right.
lucky.
Real fizzy
Yeah.
lifting drink moment.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm like, I knew that was gonna happen, but I was kind of hoping it wouldn't be that cartoony.
yeah.
It would be
Like
a
I,
little
you
bit
know, I
more
was hoping
like
that they would be like
he would have
closer to the
fallen and they
blowhole,
would have
like they would
gotten stuck
adjust.
like just a little bit out.
I mean,
Yeah,
if
Yes.
they were
it's
Yeah.
that forcefully pulled up from being dropped to go out of the blowhole, I would have liked to see more rubble or stomach acid or
Yeah.
something else being
Yep.
pulled up with them.
Yeah.
yeah. I think other things would have gone out with them for sure. Um, and then then we have the sea mine talk, which you kind of talked about the Minecraft. So bomb goes up, sea
Yeah.
monster goes into pieces, and we have Land of the Dead
Yeah.
returning. Oh, Spazzatura can use his fucking tail like an engine. I actually,
Oh yeah,
Another cartoon moment
like
for you.
Dash from The
it's definitely
Incredibles.
very cartoony, but I still was amused by it.
Yeah. Um, and yeah, so the explosion uh, breaks their little raft and everything, and
And it
Geppetto
was,
starts sinking to the bottom.
I think it was here. Yeah, blows the raft, sinks to the bottom. It was the last time we visit Death here. I think is when
Hmm.
the cropped up with all the previously established big ideas that I took issue with,
Hmm.
because it's like Pinocchio doesn't have any concept of death, so that's why I was confused, like how desperate he is to get back to his father.
Hmm.
Because to me, it doesn't make much sense, even with the lesson coming beforehand of like, you'll never know, you'll not see him again, that sort of thing. That's why I feel like Candlewick dying as a war buddy would make this scene a little more impactful and to explain his sudden desperation to get back.
Show them a little
Because
more
here it
mortality.
seems like, yeah, because it seems like right here he completely understands mortality again. Like he's just like, I don't know where it came from.
Hmm. The only thing
Um,
I can think of is like he realizes um with because he realizes that his father had been trying to find him this whole time, and
yeah.
has kind of put himself in danger and all that stuff, and
So like
uh
the decision to give up his immortality
yeah,
is obviously a very big decision. But the problem is, it works in the way that in the child sense wouldn't understand what he's giving up.
yeah.
But it also, and the other facet of it is that I don't think the movie earned the payoff of that desperation
Hmm.
because we didn't see them bond in such a manner,
Yeah.
and we also didn't. He doesn't understand the concept of death. He needed to be taught that like more directly because
Yeah.
being told as a child is entirely different from
Because
experiencing it.
yeah.
Like
Well, because pretty much all the people that
you
have
being
died around
told
him
yeah, like
are
you being told someone is dead is something, and then you experiencing the death of a pet that you
yeah,
grew up with is entirely different. So
yeah.
I think this is where I pointed, like this is a very very missed opportunity to expand on the big ideas that this story is trying to touch on. Um,
Because I was gonna say that like pretty much all the deaths that he's experienced so far are like the villains of the story, and not like people that he was actually, I mean,
I mean, I guess
emotionally close with.
that still gives
I mean,
him
that's
connection
yeah,
of understanding in a way
but not in the same way of like I
somebody
need to
cares
come
about.
back to life so I can save
yeah,
someone.
Yeah, he doesn't stay
Because
around
yeah,
a
he
dead
doesn't.
body for it to come
Yeah,
back.
it doesn't. He doesn't fully understand the concept of what he's giving up either. Like so, the choice is the impact of losing the choice of immortality also isn't as meaningful because he doesn't understand what he's giving up. In the same, okay, here's a good example. Spider-Man: No Way Home.
hmm,
Peter Parker has complete understanding what he's giving up when Doctor Strange is going to erase everybody's memories. It's a problem. Leave it alone. The concept is there though. Like he understands fully what he's giving up, and that's what makes it a very impactful scene. Whereas here, he doesn't fully comprehend it. So there's
True.
a there is a balance you need to strike in order to make this far more meaningful than what it is. Because I'm just listing out things that can be done here. They didn't really commit in one direction. The direction is he's desperate to get back to his father, which is then undercut by the story of we don't get enough between them for this to be as impactful as they want. And then we have the childlike aspect, which takes away from the perspective of the immortality. Like he doesn't fully understand what he's giving up because of the childlike innocence.
This movie would have
Which
been another thing to help write it. Would have been. I think it would have been better if Sebastian was with Pinocchio rather than with Geppetto.
yes,
Like even
I
Geppetto
would.
on his own could, after hearing what Sebastian said, not alone, just like you're a burden from the conversation in the house, and just have that on the back of his mind the whole time, and just like talking to himself and losing himself inside the dogfish, he beat himself up over and over without Sebastian's help needed. Sebastian to
Mm.
Pinocchio would help Pinocchio understand more and learn more, and even, I mean, right with what you said, if, or was it Crimson, at night, if Pinocchio never
That was
slept
right.
and
That was Crimson.
Crimson,
Yeah.
if he didn't sleep and just learned more from Sebastian, because it does
Yeah.
feel like after the camp, for some reason Pinocchio gets a little smarter, but there's nothing really to help him get smarter that he's learned.
Yeah.
So I think that would
Um.
have fit better.
I agree. So again, as a story, as someone who writes stories, the greatest sin for me is wasted potential.
Yeah.
Outside of inconsistencies and stuff like that. Wasted potential to me is like it's not a cardinal sin per se, but it's always hurts because I as a writer recognize the tools that you're playing with. The fact that you didn't commit to playing with them is what's problematic to me from the outside. Um, but yeah, so that's what I have from the third, the third and
Mm.
final visitation afterlife for Pinocchio, anyway.
Mm.
Gotcha. I had a very small two-piece domino effect where when it showed how Pinocchio was going to become mortal and be a, like, quote unquote real boy, didn't didn't see that coming. I'm like, how are they creatively going to change that? And that's the one they went with. I'm like, very cool.
You mean the
Uh,
metaphorical thing?
Yeah.
yeah, of like
Yeah,
he's a real boy, and I'm like, oh, that's how they're going to do it. Cool.
yeah. Like the
Immediately
idea that
after, yeah,
yeah,
immediately after showing that, I went, oh, Sebastian's wish is going to be on Pinocchio.
Yeah.
yes,
Immediately following, I'm like, I didn't know, like, Sebastian's wish, I forgot about it, or what's he gonna wish for? It's as soon as Pinocchio's mortality thing, which was I didn't figure. I'm like, oh, that's the cool way of doing it. Knew the wish.
yeah. I can agree with that. I figured that out pretty
Yeah.
early.
Yeah.
Yeah, that to me was also the confirmation of what the wish was actually going to turn out to be. Um, which
But then again, Sebastian wasn't really with Pinocchio this whole time. It's kind of on the
so
sadness of Geppetto, which I guess makes sense, but it's not a strong connection of
yeah,
Sebastian to Pinocchio.
yeah. So like the whole Crimson suggestion about how to work Sebastian better into the story and making him more meaningful to Pinocchio, that can go both ways too. Like Pinocchio asks him to tell bedtime stories.
Mhm.
So he forms that connection very quickly. Um, and I think that would work. So that one also is very in my head. It's just a little more to what Crimson's suggesting. So it doesn't require much more tweaking beyond that. Um,
Agree.
What else do I have
uh,
here? It's a little, I mean, I think we all caught it, but the matchbox that Sebastian gets put in when he
Yeah.
dies has a rabbit on
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
yes, that was a good one. That was good. I loved that.
Also a
Um,
reference to the original Disney because he lived in a match. Or his bed was a matchbox.
That's true.
that's true.
Mm. So his deathbed
um,
is
Yeah.
a matchbox.
As soon as that was shown, though, I got confused because I was figuring out
Oh
how is
yeah.
he still narrating if he's dead,
Oh yeah. I had the same
yeah,
thing.
but but
Yeah.
and
uh,
then
but
they
then
show it.
yeah, then they show it too. So like once he was dead, I'm like, huh, that's weird. He's still narrating though.
But then it also
and then
brings
they-
up,
and
Yeah, he
then
found me dead in the window.
yeah, but then it also brings up he's not dead.
Well, he's dead.
Well,
he's
yeah, but
dead, but
not
he's just
all the people who die are in their coffins or whatever. They're not all walking about with the rabbits. Like he's still
maybe
Well, he's a
alive with the
special
rabbit.
case. Yeah.
yeah. It might be a special case for him purely because of his interactions with death and life, the spirits, or with the life spirit, just because of the interaction, he might death might find more use in him because he's not going to eternal rest just because he understands everything
Possibly.
else that happened. That's the only justifiable reason why I can see him outside the coffin, just chatting up the death rabbits because he's just passing the time. Um, uh,
Did you foresee the all everybody kind of like the I'm not gonna say it's not a down or a bad ending, but like the downer
Everyone
ending
dying.
of everyone dying over time.
I
well,
think so, because the wish made Pinocchio back to normal. He didn't become mortal.
once yeah, once he was alive again, the death things were confirmation for me that he was immortal again.
Yeah,
Him
in the
outliving
sense
everybody.
of like he wasn't gonna age or get sick or yeah.
Yeah, like he would die and come back to life
Yeah.
potentially.
But
We don't know if that's true, but
because of that, I think Pinocchio has the ability to destroy another hourglass if need be.
He has the ability to
yeah,
destroy another
I think if
hourglass.
he died in this immortal state
Yeah,
and went back to death, he could break it, come back mortal, and then if he chose to, kill himself that way.
and maybe that's why Cricket's out of his box. He just wants to talk to Pinocchio whenever he comes
Oh,
back
when
and
he comes to
visits.
visit?
Yeah.
That could be it. I also
Um,
think it's interesting that Pinocchio and Sebastian are the exact same size to the rabbits. Like Sebastian's not tiny on the table. Like they match sizing.
yeah, I'm gonna label that as a inconsistency. That's how.
Oh, okay. I'm
Yeah,
like,
I just feel like
if
I
these
don't
dead
know.
it
people
could
can just
it
be
could
around Geppetto, would he be the size of a rabbit? Would he make the cricket small? I mean, that's something we don't know.
yeah, we don't
That's
Would
something
they
we
all be
don't
the
we'll
same
never know.
size? Who knows?
I do like Geppetto's line about joy, of how much, like,
It's
you know,
terrible joy.
Oh, I wrote it
such
down. But you did bring me joy. Such terrible,
such
terrible
terrible,
joy.
terrible joy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I never preface joy with terrible.
and that's why I think it's very impactful because the idea
Yeah.
of, like, for me, the line speaks more to, like, you never know.
How much time you have with someone until they're gone?
Pretty much, there's that, and then there's the aspect of, like, you know,
Well,
you enjoy something for so long, and then you just don't realize, sometimes you don't even notice the absence of it as well in certain aspects.
nobody
Like that friend you had on Xbox when you were growing up that you never talk to anymore, just because you
yeah,
just grew apart. You
yeah.
know, you never know, like, the last time you were gonna play together was the last time you played together.
Or
That
PC
sort of thing.
or PlayStation if you swing that way.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah,
Don't
sorry.
want to
equal
exclude
opportunity. Come on, you know.
or
um,
Nintendo consoles. Don't just
I'm just throwing it as an example.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
um, so it's one of those things where joy is a very fleeting thing, and it's hard to understand it until it's gone. That's usually how it is, because in that aspect, it's a very hard thing to appreciate until it's gone. Like, you never know what you had. So,
Yeah.
um, so anyway, I do like the line
When I
delivery,
close my eyes,
and I do like Cricket's
I
final
don't wanna
speech.
miss a
But, like,
thing.
I do like
Sorry.
Cricket's final speech, but I will say again, it does feel a little bit undercut, because of
Yeah.
the lack of relationship building that we had between them. Though we know that they're important, we just don't know the time frame and stuff like that.
I think
It's yeah.
to me, even though Pinocchio is the name of the
You
movie, the
mhm.
way the movie starts with this whole story of Geppetto,
You think it should be
I
Geppetto's
think
movie? Yeah.
Geppetto is the main character. Throughout
I
the
don't know, I
pacing of
think,
this movie, it kind of plays it as there's three main characters.
I just
Yeah.
think so it's called Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. I think Guillermo del Toro is like the main the main character of the
Oh,
film. No, I'm kidding. No, I think you're right. It seems because a lot of the growth centers more on Geppetto, even though we've talked about it a couple times and we said that it's not really super there. It is the focus of a lot of it is him kind of being either not accepting or unwilling to accept like Pinocchio as his son or responsibility for him and that sort of thing.
I
Yeah.
mean, the emotional payoff would have been far stronger if, oh no, Geppetto's lost a second son. mean, he's already gone through this. It's so saddening for him to go through it again. But it doesn't hit as strong as it could have if he had more of a bonding and more of scenes with Pinocchio.
Yep.
I agree.
I think that's it for me. I don't know if I have anything on the final thing. Other than I on my notes, hilarious to say, and Obi gets to serenade us through the credits.
I mean, yeah,
Da-da-da-da-da.
he finally got his song, third time's the charm.
Yeah.
Last thing I have is the movie started with a pine cone and ends with a pine cone. Nice
Yeah.
bookend to, especially for like kind of a fairy tale setting.
Yeah.
You know,
Good
what
bookend.
was it like? Some of the Disney ones, and I think Shrek do it, where they start with the opening of the book and they finish with the closing of the book. Kind of.
Da-dun, da-da-dun, da-da-dun, da-da-dun.
What happens, happens, and
Yeah.
then we are gone.
I think that's what I got.
Yeah,
Sinister, anything to
that's
close out on?
uh no, Ewan McGregor does a good job singing. There we go.
All right.
But
Then on to summary and ratings.
you want to go in order here? I'm gonna start with you and then work our
Yeah,
way down.
I'll work our way down. All right.
Or
So
wait, does Sprinks? Do you want to go first or
With rating or no,
summary? Well,
uh,
summary and rate. I don't know. Just so you don't. I know you don't really like being an echo chamber, so I was just curious if you wanted to.
no, it's fine. I'll go last. That's okay.
Okay. All right. Starting
all right.
with writer.
So I'm happy to watch the movie a second time. Because I picked up a lot more, as you do. And even though my notes were thoroughly taken for the first time, I didn't really add anything on the second time. I think it really helped me. So I'm gonna do my subjective first. Um, it was an odd movie for me because of, like I said, I was looking for um what I wanted from the movie didn't happen. So it didn't wasn't necessarily subjectively damaging. It was just uh I think I just wanted them to play with their tools a bit more, as I said earlier. Um, that being said, there is there is definitely a very nice fairy tale aspect to this movie. I like my fairy tales with not necessarily dark endings, but I like them with the bittersweet endings. So we do get our bittersweet ending here in this movie. I like the setting, which is interwar period, because I'm a historian. I'm a war historian by hobby, so I like the interwar period. I like when things take place in the interwar period because I always have interesting things to say. I like people's takes, that sort of thing. I think Crimson. Well, we heard Crimson's opinion regarding the world building, at least around the concept of the rules on the immortality. Um, I'm kind of in agreement that they don't. The reason that they're there is is specifically to facilitate the third one, which is the choice of giving it up. And then there's a bunch of other issues that come with that, and that they play around with these big ideas that don't necessarily dive too deeply into. Where I think the movie might have been stronger if it did. Um, and then obviously the animation is wonderful from beginning to end. I'm kind of in agreement with Crimson, mesmerized from the beginning to end. It is definitely spectacle, gorgeous to watch, and I think my favorite moments of it is Spazzator's flickering emotions in short amount of time to fight the count. Um, and there is, I think, something worthwhile here. And I did have fun ultimately watching the movie. So I balance between subjectively between 7 and 8, but I think I'm gonna settle on a 7, much like Crimson. Uh, Objectively, um, the plot's fairly simple, but it does kind of get muddled occasionally by the appearance and reappearance of characters, and like I said, there's a lot of conveniences that carry the plot forward, which is problematic. And it does take away from some of the more emotional impacts that I would have liked to have hit harder. Um, and as I said, there's a lot of potentially good emotional stuff here. I don't think land as well as I'd like them too as well. Um, the characters, well, we kind of touched on it towards the end here a lot of how they don't really add up well. Some of the character arcs, they're not strong enough to facilitate payoffs. Some things that happen aren't strong enough to facilitate what happens later. Um, I'm just kind of running it through my head right now. I think Pinocchio as a character uh, grows too quickly, though I do like the childlike innocent aspect, but he grows far too understanding of his situation later on. Um, which I think as we said, we kind of already offered solutions that would have prevented that and fixed it. Geppetto probably is the main character in the movie because he has a very, very strong opening, character-wise. So we have a full understanding of who he is at the beginning, which is why it makes it odd that we don't really get to see the arc that he's supposed to go on of accepting Pinocchio as his son. I like it in concept. I think it needs to be touched up here and there. Cricket, I think, is the most underutilized character in this movie. I think there is I think there's something that to be done with him in that sense of he's supposed to be the one helping to teach both of them at a certain point, but they don't really do much because he spends most of the movie being talked over, stomped on, and getting swatted aside, pretty much. Which it's done for gags. It does pull out laughs, but it really questions as to the full point of his character being here. Um, And then we have the other side characters like Candlewick and Podesta. I think they're both serviceable. They're all serviceable, even if it's rushed. Um, and it does feel out of place in some cases, which we've pointed out. The Act Four feels the time we spend at the youth camp is a little out of place and doesn't really facilitate any payoffs. And I think that encapsulates a lot of what I feel and feel objectively coming from this film, which is there is a lot of setup, but the payoffs to them either aren't well grounded or they aren't fully explored.
Mm.
So because of that, I was balancing between a 6 and a 7. I think I've landed on a 6.5 for this movie objectively on the writing end. I think the movie has a lot to say. The problem is I think it tries to say too much. So I will leave it at that. Sinister, take it away.
So I was really excited when I found out this movie was actually going to happen because I was excited when I heard about it, years ago, and then when it got canceled, it was or it was put on hold. I was like, oh man, especially because I loved the original Disney Pinocchio a lot, and I was a big fan of Pat McHale and Guillermo del Toro, and I thought, wow, those two working together, it's going to be something really really special. And then when I, was coming back, I was really excited, especially when I found out it was stop motion. Perfect. That's, like the perfect, I think, medium to tell like a Pinocchio story. Um, and I was really happy that we got to cover this because I kept putting it off because I was just like didn't have time to watch it when it finally did come out, and so it was a good excuse to force myself to make time for it. And I definitely had a lot of fun watching it. It definitely wasn't what I expected, I think, going in, and some parts for the better, some parts I think not so much. Um, I this will be probably the one echo chamber thing that I think we're all going to say. The animation is, I think, as close to perfect as you can possibly get. With definitely, I think we brought up a few exceptions, but it's phenomenal. It's everything looks not necessarily real, but like a hyper, like exaggerated reality or some. That it looks realistic in the form of it's animated realistically, where these characters feel like real people, but they're not. and I think the people working on it did a fantastic job. There was a few hurdles as far as the storytelling that I think was hard to avoid, especially because Del Toro, I think, decided to go against pure magic and kind of a little bit more realism, which kind of hurt the world building a bit because some of the rules didn't seem to make sense and or were too vague. There was a few little story elements that kind of either needed to be trimmed or reinforced that just didn't either get a full payoff or didn't feel like the payoff was as deserved. Um, One more good thing, I think all the people who voice acted in this did a phenomenal job. The kid who played Carlo in Pinocchio was really, really good. I never heard of him before, and I think he's got a bright future going forward if he, especially if he wants to do, voice acting and then, actual probably he's probably an actual like, in-person actor too. Um Geppetto, great. Uh didn't realize it was I can't
David
what's the name
Bradley.
of David Bradley. Didn't realize it was David Bradley and I was like, oh, once I heard it I couldn't unhear it. Uh Ewan McGregor does a really good job as Sebastian. Probably underutilized, but I think for what he's on the screen for, it's pretty good. Kate Blanchett obviously does a good silent monkey, mostly silent monkey. Ron Perlman, I mean, what can you say? Knocked it out of the park. There's John Turturro, who I love. He's the doctor. Tim Blake Nelson does the rabbits. Kate Blanchett does, or not Kate Blanchett.
Tilda
Tilda
Swinton.
Swinton does Life and Death, and and Finn Wolfhard is Candlewick, who surprised got as much screen time, but it's Finn Wolfhard, so you got to use him as much as you can. Um, and there's a few other ones that I think I missed, but yeah, all of them did a really good job. I don't know if there's anything else, other than what we've already talked about, that some of the plot lines didn't really coalesce correctly, or just some things just sort of fell off and didn't pay off in the right way. But I think honestly, the good stuff just really shines through, and I mean most of it is hard work that you can tell went into this and a lot of care. So I feel pretty good. I wanted to give this a 10, but after going through a bunch of other, I wasn't gonna give it 10 even before we started talking about it. Didn't feel quite right. There was something nagging at me, but having gone through it a bit more, I feel fairly confident in giving this an 8 overall.
An 8. Okay.
Yeah, 8. And the music is really, really good too. Not even the musical numbers themselves, but like the incidental music and everything is very well done. Very.
I'm gonna before we hand this over to you, Springs. I think I'm gonna actually move mine to a 7. I think I'm just gonna take after Crimson. I think 7 and 7 is probably where I'd land to. Unfortunately, or not unfortunately, just where I landed.
No.
It feels weird, like still somehow after 30 plus episodes. That feels weird when I'm tying with people, but yeah, I think 7 and 7.
All right. Sprinks,
Okay, I
take it
guess I'm
away,
up.
please.
I'll start with my subjective. I thought this was a really awesome movie, and I think the creative liberties that are different from the Disney version, which is another version I've seen, are very cool in how it was made. And I quite enjoyed it, and I would watch it again. I give it an 8, subjectively. Uh, Objectively, I did change my score a little. I had it. Well, I'll say I lowered it by 0.5 because of what was discussed of things. So I did lower it a bit, but uh, I think something that does help is the behind the scenes really helps show how much care and effort was put into this film, which a lot, every one could say and argue every film does that, but for stop motion and the detail that has to go in for accuracy on things, and it wasn't something that really stands out to me, it was not made to be pristine. It was not made to be perfect. They wanted the human errors, they wanted the dirt, they wanted the grit, they wanted it to be in this film to show a more realistic and attempted emotional connection to make it stand out. And it does. It makes the animation stand out from any others stop motion to my knowledge or anything else in that regard because of the reason why it does not look crisp and clean like others do. I think something phenomenal, which is very hard for me because I definitely like natural lighting over artificial, but the lighting in this film is artificially used, but in ways of natural director of photography cinematography used for lighting connections to make sure that the shots are shown in a way that demonstrate what needs to be shown with the feeling of lighting. For the one scene that the three of us nitpicked on was burning of Pinocchio with the Count, the lighting from the torch, and that's the only kind of source of lighting because it doesn't really show the camp in the background, shows the movement of being towards the monkey, towards Pinocchio, lighting the contract with it to then move the contract to the both sides of the face, but still showing shadowing on the face because it's only two sources of light on left and right and not, full on showing with the little glint here and there of the shadow slightly moving because it's fire. I think it's phenomenally done. The lighting of the even just the backgrounds of the painted sets, kind of like or Pinocchio and Geppetto in the woods, coming back home, and you can tell the background of the forest is a painted, or maybe not
Mhm.
painted, but made set with the woods that they're in. But the lighting is coming through it and reflecting off of that backing to give more of a musky wood feel in evening time. And I think the lighting is very well done for a stop motion animation picture. So very good on that. Cinematography, I think, was decent. There's some really good shots I like. I think the establishing shots I like the most, showing placements of where things are, like the church. When it shows Carlo going to the church for the first time, it's through that archway, but it shows the church as this big grand thing, but doesn't make them look small. And then same with the camp. The camp is this huge building, but it doesn't make the truck arriving to it look small. So they're proportioned correctly, but still showing establishing shots of where we're going next. I think that was great. Uh, I'll just go down the list. Voice acting was fantastic. Since you didn't touch on Tom Kenny, Tom Kenny was in the movie, so good on us on
Well,
that.
he was good, but
I mean,
I
that's
don't
a
need to say he did a
small
good
bit.
job.
Yeah,
He did a good job. I don't need to say he did a good job. He's Tom Kenny.
yeah.
He always does a good job.
I believe there was another Pinocchio movie where Tom Kenny was Geppetto. I think. I could be uncertain about that, but I think so. Anyway, so I don't know if he was used from that to be in here or whatnot. So voice acting was great. Just the cast in general, big names, really cool. Let's see what else. I'm kind of on the fence whether it's aimed towards kids. Like, what's the target audience for this film? I don't really know the whole setting and the focus on the camp and Kennewick's dad and all that. I wouldn't necessarily point that as a kids movie. It's kind of like Indiana Jones 1. I wouldn't call it a kids movie, but it's adventurous and fun story. So I don't know about that. Something that stood out to me personally that I kind of wanted to say for the summer here that made it grounded for me more of that childlike feel for Pinocchio's character as a kid was the fact that Pinocchio, the whole movie to me, looked like the scarecrow from Bob the Builder. Whole
Kind
time.
of, yeah. I could see that.
And to me, it just made me feel like something I grew up on as a kid watching. So it had that connection to me personally. But I think it's fantastic. I think the only real problems come from this are the emotional payoffs that could have been stronger, in my opinion, or our opinion of what we discussed with how we think things could be changed and written. I don't think they would have been detrimental. I'm sure, if Sebastian was with Pinocchio the whole time, what would he think about the circus? What would he think about the camp? What would Sebastian's role in that be? It would be a little harder to get this conscience to go in rather than just accepting this is Pinocchio's path. I think Sebastian as a character himself to go with Geppetto should have been stronger than just that one scene of calling a burden and then just kind of tagging along for the ride to get swallowed by the dogfish and not really do much else. So he's kind of sidelined, but he still comes up in big roles where he's a center point of a character, which gives him that, main character feel. So I think that's a real hard thing. I think if this movie we went in the 5 act structure, if this movie was into 4 acts, I think the third, if you can envision it being in 4 acts, the third act is the weakest part of the whole film. I think the pacing of it is very off and fast and juddy from the second death of Pinocchio in the circus performance to go to the car, and then from the whole one night at the camp to then the bombing to the ocean. It just seems very fast, and then conveniently paced bow ties on the Count and wrapping up Candlewick's dad and that, and Candlewick being alive for some reason. But it just seemed fast and choppy to me, and
Mhm.
everything else felt smooth. And I think one of the main focuses for that, at least to stand out from the rest, is that didn't have Geppetto in it. And I don't know if, and that's something to add to me that makes me think Geppetto is the main character. Which is very nice because of how the movie starts on his character and then ends with him dying. It doesn't show anything else really on Pinocchio's life after the fact that they've passed away or his friends are gone. It ends with Geppetto's death. Uh, and to me, because of all this, I'm pretty much in agreement with Sinister here. I give it an 8.
Eyes across the board.
Yeah.
Um,
Good job, Del Toro.
yeah.
You passed the bar, and you
Um,
can be our friend.
uh, yeah.
But I did have it as an 8.5, but I did lower it because of the realism, aspect we said, and Pinocchio flying out of the camp, and he should have died there because of the car. If a car hit him and killed him, how did
Yeah.
that not do it? And so stuff like that.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
the musical choice. The music was really nice. The musical numbers and the background music, and I really think that something like I liked all the music, and I think something that strengthens that is the fact that they all sounded the same. You didn't have like one jazzy song stand out from the rest or one more like country beat or something. They all were using wood instruments to make them all blend and sound the same, which helped.
Yeah. I read that they used only the composer only used wood instruments, which I think adds more. Um, shall I close this out then, gentlemen?
Yes, very good pick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, very good pick.
Yeah. So, thank you for listening. Wherever you might be, whether it be Spotify, Anchor, Google, Amazon, Castbox, Pocket Cast, or Samsung, or YouTube for the visual medium sort of thing. You can see our PNG tubers. Please feel free to like, comment, share, and tell us how much you hate our opinions or how much you love them. As always, I have been a geeky writer,
I'm a character called Sinister Boy.
We had a Crimson Maroon, and I'm Sprinks.
and we will catch you next time. Later, everybody.
Bye
Toodaloo.
bye.